Good morning, everyone. Oki, Daranastada, Ambawastich, and Tansei. Welcome back to the public hearing on Treaty 7 territory. Mr. Clerk, could we do a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. On the roll, Councillor Sharp.
Here.
Councillor Wyness. Councillor Meehan.
Here.
Councillor Chu. Here. Councillor Dhaliwal. Councillor Pootmans. Here. Councillor Wong. Councillor Walcott.
I'm here.
Councillor Corral.
I'm here.
Councillor Chabot.
Present.
Councillor Penner.
Here.
Councillor Spencer.
Here.
Councillor McLean.
Here.
Councillor Demong.
Here.
And did I hear any other councillor on the phone bridge? Mayor Gondek?
I'm here.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, so last night when we finished up, I said we would go to panel 152 and 151 and 152 this morning. As I do that, I'm also interested to know if there's anyone here from previous panels. I have information that from panel 148, we have John Schmal, and from panel 150, we have Harry Chandler. I'll fit you in as I can. Who else is here that missed yesterday? Okay, so I just said that you're on. Yeah. Please go ahead with the glasses. What's your, yeah?
Claire Oster, I was on panel
144?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just double check that. Okay, I've got you. Wanda, I think you're on 145, so I'll fit you in too. Thank you, sir. 149? Hang on. Riley Makkar. Okay, great. Got you too. Okay, so let's see who we've got from 151 and 152, and then I will slot you folks in. Is there anybody on the phone line that's from a panel before 151?
Yes, I'm on the phone line.
Yeah.
Okay, I heard a woman's voice. Would you mind telling me who that is?
Yes, it's Louise Castonguay, and I was on 148 last night, and I got missed. I didn't hear the phone.
Okay, perfect, 148. Who else is on the line that's from a previous panel, one before 151?
My name. So you can go first.
Hi, okay, this last person that spoke, what's your name?
I'm Jarom Lybbert. I was on panel 150.
150, Jaron Lybbert, okay, I've got you. There was somebody else that spoke. Who was that?
Sorry.
Hi, who's this?
My name's Regina McReary. I'm on panel 147.
147. Yes, I've got you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from a panel before 151? All right, so I will try to fit all of you folks in. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 or 9 of you, but we'll get you all in. Let's go to panel 151. Do we have Brett Harris? Do we have Monica Duarte Ramirez? Do we have Esther Sutherland? Do we have Trevor Marr? Marr? Hi. Please grab a seat up front. Do we have Fionna Rouane? Hi, please come on up. Okay, on panel 152, do we have Ray Yu? And do we have Andy Wolfleg? Okay, then for this panel, we'll start with Trevor Marr. We'll then go to Fionna Rouane. Then we'll go to John Schmal, then Harry Chandler, and from panel 144, we'll go to Claire Oster. So let's start with Mr. Marr, please.
Okay. I have bad eyes and bad knees. Okay, respectfully, thank you, Mayor Gondek, and all the city councillors who are hopefully striving to best represent the fine people of Calgary and the future success of this wonderful city. I respectfully echo many of the earlier words given here previously, asking why change, why the rush. As a citizen and a homeowner, I also do not want Calgary to rush into this and potentially become a, pardon my language, shithole city. Yes, in my opinion, we are witnessing a push towards what used to be called Agenda 21 and is now called Agenda 2030. Mayor Gondek may be working more for these agendas for Justin Trudeau and Klaus Schwab, who want to make Calgary Coyote ugly for their leftist globalist agenda to control the people, control the population, control our industries, control our freedoms, and control the length of our lives, rather than representing the will of the majority of the tax-burdened citizens. My Alberta is freedom, not socialism. If this fine mayor wants to admirably be a public servant for the people, she must serve the public, respecting the will of the majority and respecting reality to the betterment of the city and the citizens. We do not need, nor do we want, public self-servants disrespecting and fooling their constituents, pushing false agendas, pocketing cash, and working for those who want to control us, destroy our economy, and literally reduce our lifespans. I am against blanket rezoning. To me, it reeks of chaos and instability. History has shown there must be set city regulations, followed with discussed, evaluated, accepted, case-by-case, agreed-upon variances to suit any overall plan. We must not slip into willy-nilly, random, disrespectful, inconsiderate, anything goes, Mad Max style, aimless, unplanned, slap-happy, overwhelming urban happenstances, yielding tension and eyesores across the city. Note, I question what really is the current housing crisis in Calgary. If anything, we need more low-cost, affordable starter home options in designated areas. The unsustainably higher and higher unattainable home price trend is not just in Calgary, it is everywhere. It has a lot to do with the WEF puppet federal, provincial, municipal left endorsing the globalist cabal's deeper plans, including the current unsustainable immigration policy that wants you to be happy that they own everything and you own nothing. And for your information, petro resources are used by everyone, everywhere, for everything. If you and your agendas do not visibly and vocally stand up and support the world-class Alberta driving petro resource industry, then you must literally walk your talk and stop benefiting from them. Or else please step down in favor of those that do respect reality, success, and the Alberta advantage over agenda and control. Today is May 1st. Look outside. All I can say is, brr, thank God for oil. Blankets are used to cover up things. What is Mayor Gondek covering up with this blanket rezoning? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. If I could ask, if there's questions for you, sir, if you just refrain from the profanity.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Fionna Rouane, please.
I did submit a few pictures as well. Okay, perfect. I'll just go through them as I speak. Just firstly want to say good morning, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for this opportunity. I know this is an arduous process, but I do think the one great thing that we can all take from this is all the feedback from different perspectives, from different ages, from different socioeconomics. I think that's a really important factor to state here. And I realize some of the things I'm about to say have been reiterated already, but here we go. So I am in opposition of blanket rezoning. I'm representing myself, family member, and additionally neighbors that also share this perspective. This concept affects the character and community of Calgary as a whole, and City Council has a responsibility to listen to feedback from residents and the reasoning caused by this housing model. Residents choose communities with the type of housing that's there. By council pushing blanket rezoning, it takes away the democratic process and facilitates infiltration by developers into communities, essentially changing overall character without acceptance of residents. By the removal of residents taking taking part in the process, way, type, and pace at which growth evolves in their community. Namely, older communities with established history, one of the oldest being historical Bowness. Housing is a basic necessity. Therefore, the reasoning in which the way we develop it is so important, requiring thorough and an integrated approach for sustainability of the City of Calgary and its residents. Blanket rezoning is not the answer to the housing crisis. These high-density homes do not address affordable housing or accessible housing for Calgarians. They're not beneficial to seniors or persons with reduced mobility. It's ideal for seniors to be in their homes as long as possible, but they're being driven out by developers, a direct target to vulnerable population and ageism, affecting mental, physical, and physiological health of our aging population. We're all being targeted. With rent costs nearly $3,000 monthly, this is not affordable. And where there was once 1, now 12. This is too dense for older communities, causing congestion to water, sewer, electricity, parking, roadways, amenities, and safety concerns. It is strongly affecting the contextual character of the community, which is vastly at stake, damaging the history of Bowness. This is not in alignment with the Bowness ARP, Area Redevelopment Plan. The setbacks in height of proposed HGO and RCG are drastically different, causing overshadowing, towering over windows, reducing sun warmth, gardening, solar panels, and invasion of privacy, as shown in the picture. And can I have the next slide, please? The lot coverage of 45 to now 60%, a 15% reduction in green space and amenities. With carbon pollution and environmental protection being paramount, why are we contributing to this? Trees, plants, grass contribute to oxygen, health, and the protection of land and people. And with city parks being rezoned, will we lose more green space to development? The lack of parking at 0.5 unit is absurd, not including secondary or backyard suites. With more vehicles, traffic controls are needed. With reduced speed, speed zones, stop, yield signs, it's a safety for motorized and non-motorized vehicles, pedestrians, children, elderly, pets, and animals. Additionally, the BRT transit route was recently removed from Bowness. With the removal of the mature trees and green space, it leaves way to potential for flooding, be it overland, high water, runoff, or precipitation. And additionally, fire safety concerns with quick builds, condensed units, inadequate firewalls, more flammable materials, location of doors and windows. Will the Calgary Fire Department be involved in this process? There has been a huge lack of engagement from City of Calgary developers and community. It's very hard for citizens of Calgary to support an initiative in which they have not all been a part of nor had the ability to engage in the process. With last-minute meetings, no in-person, community associations not facilitating some locations being too small for the number of people attending. I would like to know that, or state that there's no accountability for council to manage the influx and the guidelines to limit the number of these homes being built. Currently, within a 2-block radius of my residence is 10 developments. Can I have the next slide? And the following just shows some of the trees that will be removed in the process, and again, the difference in height as well as setback. I'm running out of time, so in closing, I just want to state our communities where we shop, eat, exercise, educate, and it is important, essentially our home. So I ask
Thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate it. Let's go to John Schmal, please. Mr. Schmal, you're up.
Good morning, Your Worship and members of council. These chambers look somewhat different than when I retired in 2004. Don't count this moment for my presentation, if you would. I just wanted to say that it is different because when you stand up, some of you stand up and I say, who's speaking here? And so it's confusing for me, but I can understand it. It's a good thing to stand up once in a while for exercise and blood circulation. So thank you for the introduction here. I just wanted to say that, do you have my letter in front of you? Or not? Is that how you operate? Do you have my letter in front of you that I sent in to the city clerk?
So I'm gonna break procedure
Yeah,
for
but
just one
okay.
moment, just to explain that we have everything in our e-scribe. So some members of council may have it up before them, some may not, but we have it in our package.
Well, if I can start now, I just want to say is that, for the record, unlike Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal, the city of Calgary is the largest city in area in Canada and in most cities in the United States. I hope I can repeat that again. We are the largest city in area in Canada and in many other cities in the United States. I just want you to remember that. However, City Council did approve the affordable housing strategy, or blanket zoning, that will apply to all R1 communities instead of all newer communities and other open spaces in Calgary where it can be easily accommodated without having to upset thousands of homeowners in R1 communities. At this stage, I can tell you, I am confused. I think the cart's before the horse. It's already approved, and we're discussing what? Potential amendments? I don't know what I'm here for. So I'm very, very confused. You have approved the strategy. You have approved the funding, federal government funding. And what's left? Is it a few comments like amendments maybe that you mentioned, Your Worship, in the Herald here the other day, or some other members of council did as well? Is that what we're here for, just a few amendments? The strategy has been approved, is what I'm saying. What am I here for? To argue amendments? I'm not here for approving the strategy because it has been approved. So anyhow, I just thought I'd mention that. It's very confusing. As late as this morning, I look in the Calgary Herald and I see the same thing, exactly what I've been hearing from many, many hundreds of people. And this is their last comment. Our city council is just going through the motions now and has already made up its decision. This is how people talk to me as well, a lot of seniors. So it seems to me that what we're doing here is generation against generation. Younger people versus the older. And that's not very nice. You know, I've had a family grow up and looked after, and have younger people now go after the older people for what they have. They have a home. We have a home. I have lived in the community of Mayland Heights for 57 years. I've done what I could to make sure my home remained nice, with grass, trees, and we like living there. But what really is the question is that, but younger people come along and they say, I deserve a home. I deserved a home when I was that old as well. But let me tell you, I think you need to know this, what it cost me today to live in my home, a 1,000 square foot bungalow. I pay $394, that's my last bill, utilities. $288 taxes, that's all per month. $125 in insurance, fire insurance. The total is $807. Now this would be in addition to a mortgage. So if a younger person took out a mortgage, they'd have to pay another $800 just to live there. That's not counting any improvements or repairs that you have to make on your home. So I think that that's very important for me to indicate that the younger people, yes, they deserve a home. Of course they do. But so did we. We did a lot of saving, and we lived in rental accommodation. Many basements that didn't have big windows, just a little window. And we tried to save enough to eventually be able to afford to purchase a home. I do also want to say that in regards to the community of Malin Heights, which is in the airport district, and I think your administration should make note of this, that if they do not have approval from the Minister of
Mr.
Transport,
Schmal, you're at time.
the Minister of Transport,
Mr. Schmal, you're at time, so thank you for your presentation.
yeah,
if
I
there's-
just want them to know
If there's questions in the
they
queue,
must
we'll
have
call you back up.
transportation. The Minister
Mr.
of
Schmal,
Transport
you know
has
this
to give them
procedure.
approval.
You know
Just a
this
minute.
procedure,
That's
sir.
a very important point.
Mr. Schmal, you know the procedure. I gave you extra time. Please sit down, sir. Please sit down, sir, so I can get on to the next presenter who also waited like you did. Thank you very much. I will call you up when there's questions. If you haven't submitted something, clerks will gladly take it from you. If you have submitted something, it's in our package.
Unfair because I need to tell them.
Mr. Schmal, thank you very much. I gave you more than 5 minutes. I've been very accommodating. We need to get on to the next speaker, sir. Thank you for being with us today. Let's go to Harry Chandler, please.
It's very unfair, and
Mr.
I
Schmal, it's
find that
Harry
very.
Chandler's turn. It's Mr. Chandler's turn, so let's please give him the mic.
Thank you, Mayor and members of Council, for hearing me speak today. My name is Harry, and I'm a resident of Ward 7, and I'm here speaking for myself. I'm almost 40 years old, and I only very recently purchased my first home with my partner. We count ourselves extremely fortunate that we were able to purchase a home, but amongst our peers, we are one of the privileged few. For many of my peers, the prospect of home ownership is extremely remote. These are people who work full-time jobs, or in some cases multiple jobs, and who could not afford the time to be here and make their own submission. This rezoning proposal before Council would be a small step towards providing a greater supply of housing for those who wish to live in our inner city neighborhoods, and hopefully would be a step towards others eventually realizing their dreams of home ownership. Not only would rezoning curb Calgary's carbon footprint by reducing suburban sprawl, but it would create a more concentrated tax base, thereby reducing the tax burden on all Calgary residents. We live in an older neighborhood that has already seen a number of the original houses torn down and replaced with newer single-family homes. We've also seen the construction of a number of townhouses where previously there stood a single-family home. I've heard many say that the construction of townhouses would somehow dramatically alter the character of their neighborhood. I see no such dramatic change in our neighborhood. But I do see a new sparkle, and I feel a new joy. To me, more neighbors is a positive. It means new energy and stronger community. Now, if I have to choose between some monstrously large, single detached house or a row of 3-story townhouses, I'm going to choose the townhouses. For us, our house is our home. We did not buy it as an investment property. We intend to spend many years there and raise a family. And the idea that once I got my home, I would be inclined to close the drawbridge behind me and prevent others from realizing that same dream is, to me, an utterly selfish and unneighborly way of thinking. To my mind, the proposal before Council is very modest. As many have said, it's not a silver bullet that will solve the housing crisis, but neither is it the doomsday scenario that others have portrayed it to be. This is just a small step in building a city that is more sustainable, more inclusive, and more diverse. In closing, I strongly urge Council to do the right thing and vote yes to upzoning. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Let's go to Claire Oster, please.
Good morning, everyone. Before I begin, I would like to express my gratitude to the Council. Thank you for taking the time to listen and for letting me come in today. And thank you for all of those who have put in the work to make this hearing possible. I really appreciate that. My name is Claire Oster. I'm a full-time student at the University of Calgary. During the school year, I tend to work 32 hours a week. I'm a renter and I am also a taxpayer. I urge you to vote yes for RCG upzoning. This will not result in a higgledy-piggledy or hodgepodge, and it is certainly not a one-size-fits-all. It will let you build a wider variety of houses. But it moves us in the direction that we need to be going. I appreciate all those who have spoke before me, talking about moving forward and not staying stagnant. Life continues to move forward. We need to move with it. We will continue to grow as a city and as communities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We're going to go to questions for this panel. Let's start with Councillor Sharp, please.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone, for being here today. I'm going to ask Miss Fionna, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your last name without Rowe?
It's Rowan.
Rowan, thank you for being here. Nice to see you again.
Thank you.
I know you've been quite involved in all the meetings and my town hall and all that, and I appreciate you here this morning as well. So Bowness has seen a lot of change over the last 10 years, a lot. And obviously this is about blanket rezoning, where the parcels that you would speak for or against in regular land use would be just, we'd be blanketing those. Some amendments and ideas have come from residents throughout the last 9 days. And one example that's kind of, talked about a lot, and if you could speak to what your thoughts are on this, is adding an additional secondary suite to those parcels that are zoned RC1 or RC2, so you can have a secondary suite already, but adding an additional one to increase housing with some of the laneways that are in Bowness. How do you feel about that?
Kind of mixed. I do think it's probably ideal versus tearing down these homes, because I think that's a lot of what's seeing is they're being torn down, and unfortunately only 5 minutes to address a few things, but once they sit vacant, then they're torn down, then there's nothing there. So like even in those pictures that I had displayed, a lot of those homes have been sitting 3 to 5 years, nothing. So in that time, they could have been being utilized as rentals, even potentially low-income rentals, because maybe they're older homes that are, needing some repair or things like that. So I see that there's a loss there for potential viability for rentals. So I'm not necessarily opposed to having secondary suites. I just don't think that the blanket rezoning and having it all, wide open to be done all at once with, as we know, the developers are coming in, they're doing it quite quickly, they're putting as many as they can. So I'm not opposed to the backyard suites, or maybe some incentive for people to have secondary suites in their homes, that we can utilize that existing infrastructure rather than destroying it.
And you also mentioned something that has happened during my tenure here, is that we did lose a transportation route, and there are more people moving into Bowness, and the one is packed. And so if we're wanting more people to come, will the community be advocating to bring transit back into the community? Because we do have an issue already with crossing 16th Avenue to, I guess, like Greenbrier and all that area up there. Is that something the community is going to advocate for if this passes?
I am not sure at this point, and I think that I know that there's going to be some discussions and conversations about how to address things kind of internally within the community association. So that's certainly something that we're looking at. I'm obviously not speaking for that today, but I think that it's a good idea that we do need to look at that, because there's reduction in the transportation. There's, as I stated, within a 2-block radius of me, there is 138 homes slated to move into 2 blocks. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. And that's not likely to be one person per household. It's likely to be 2 or more potentially. So that's definitely something that we need to look at. And the other thing is just the sustainability of the community right now. I mean, I would have liked to include it in my presentation, but there wasn't time. There is, 5 empty businesses on Bowness Road that are sitting vacant and have been for quite some time for lease. So there's still a lack there of, resources or, again, sustainability. You want people to move into the community, you want them to be able to have transportation and potentially work within their community. Well, we're kind of at a loss for that right now in some aspects.
Do you think, my last question to you, because we're talking about sustainability, the infrastructure changes that have to happen in Bowness in order to sustain more people? I mean, I know, because I get them firsthand, the amount of water main breaks that are impacting hundreds of people a month sometimes. Do you foresee that being an issue?
I definitely foresee it being an issue. That's, again, one of the things that I wanted to address in my presentation. Is it's going to be a huge issue because it is an older community. We just are not allotted for that currently. So even now, with some of the developments that they are doing, they're shutting down the road. Maybe they're doing that small portion of it, but that's not going to cover what really needs to be done within the community as a whole, which again just leads way to why we need to do this in an integrated manner instead of just having a blanket rezoning and the go-ahead. And again, as I stated, I think it's really important that the City of Calgary has some kind of guidelines in place to manage that, or to make sure that those things are being addressed so that we don't end up with a worse problem as a result.
Okay, thank you so much for being here and your involvement along the way. That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Councillor Chabot, please.
Yeah, I'd like to start with former Alderman John Schmal.
Good morning.
Good morning. Schmal, you were talking a little bit about AVPA, and I'm sure you're aware that there's been some AVPA. You were talking about AVPA previously before you were unable to conclude your statement. And I know there's been some small changes to the AVPA regulations, but you did want to say something. Can you elaborate on what your concern was for Maitland Heights specifically as it relates to AVPA regulations?
Are you talking NEP?
No, the AVPA, the Airport Vicinity Protection Area. The AVPA regulations, you talked about it, the NEF contours, the proximity to the airport.
Well, what I was hoping to share, Alderman Chabot is Councillor Chabot, I'm sorry, is that if this plan is to be applied to the community of Maitland Heights, then the city administration must have an approval from the Minister of Transportation in Ottawa. The reason being is because Maitland Heights, when it was approved in the 60s, received the approval, not only the approval from the city, but also the approval from Transport Canada and the airport. But Transport Canada was a key player in that they wanted to make sure that whatever was approved in the community of Maitland Heights was very low density, and that's exactly what happened. We had city signage up that said low density R1 development. The reason? For safety. We've never had an accident yet. We've never had a plane come down over our community yet as a disaster, but it can happen. It has happened in other cities in the world. So the city administration must get approval from Transport Canada indicating that they are prepared to ignore that safety reason, future safety reason, keeping in mind that since the 60s, those numbers have drastically increased. I'm talking about flights going over the community of Maitland. We're talking about an international airport today, as you well know, and there are thousands of flights. We've had some close calls. And the airport is very reluctant to share that with anyone, as you can well imagine. So as long as the City of Calgary is aware that they get the approval from the Minister of Transportation in Ottawa to put the plan in place over Maitland, otherwise our community needs to be exempted from this total plan.
Okay, thanks for that. We will be sure to get clarity around that very issue. If and when this concludes, I'll make sure that that question gets asked of administration. So thank you for bringing that up. Now, as former alderman...
I have a hard time hearing you here.
Sorry, John. Maybe I'll speak up a little louder. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
I'll make sure it gets addressed. So secondly, you are still involved in your community. Is your sentiment something that you have shared with others or others have shared with you as far as your position on this blanket rezoning?
Well, over and over again, I get people calling me and saying, what's the use of going downtown? It's a given, it's done. And that really bothers me. It really bothers me. But when I look back and I say to myself, I'm here today, the item has been fully approved. I'm talking about the strategy itself, affordable housing strategy, plus the funding from the federal government has been totally approved. And so now I'm here for what? Am I asking you to make an amendment to a plan you have already approved? Or what is it I'm here for?
I just want to be clear about one thing for sure from you. Are you against blanket rezoning or for?
Well, I'm certainly against it, as you can well imagine, having lived in a home for 57 years and then being threatened by all kinds of things that can happen next door to you. Even the restriction of a 6-foot fence today, we'd have to do away with that and maybe get one for 20 feet high because, of the stories that can go next door to you.
Okay, thanks. That's all the questions I had for you, John, but thank you for being here and for providing us with your comments. I do have a question for Mr. Chandler, if I may. So I got a question for this other gentleman here.
Thanks.
Sir. Chandler, so you say you've just purchased a home?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of home, if I might ask?
It's a single-family home.
Okay. So I'm not sure if you have heard submissions made by lots of folks in the industry, but no one has yet been able to say to me that they've been able to produce a product through this rezoning that would actually be lower cost than the home that they purchased in the first place. So you said that if we don't approve this, it'll essentially close the door. So I want to be clear, your concern here, is it that if we approve this, it'll close the door to people being able to buy single-family homes or for entering into the market?
For entering into the market, I mean, it just provides more choice for people.
Choice.
Obviously, townhouses are going to be cheaper than a single-family home.
But it hasn't been demonstrated that they are.
I disagree.
I'm just telling you what the facts say.
The facts, right? Okay.
So far. Okay, thanks. No further questions.
Thank you, Councillor Chabot. I am looking to see if there's any other questions of this panel, and I don't see any. So thank you to all the panelists for being here today. We appreciate the time that you offered us today. I'm going to move to the next panel. It is going to be, so all of you, thank you very much. You can take your seats. We're going to go to Wanda Trytten, please. Wanda, you can come on up and have a seat. We're going to have Riley Makkar, please. Louise Castonguay, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Do we have Jarom Lybbert?
Yep, I'm here.
Perfect. And do we have Regina McReary? Ms. McReary, are you still on the line?
Yes, I'm sorry. I couldn't unlock my phone to unmute it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No worries. You're going to be the 5th person on this panel, so you can mute yourself for now.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we've got this panel assembled, and I'm just going to see if we're ready for the one after this. That is 153. Do we have Maddie Carter? Do we have Ash Khan? Gabriella Wong Ken? Hillary Rubel?
I'm on the line.
Thank you. Do we have Katrina Petrosenko? Okay, that's panel 153. I will call those names again after this panel is done. So let's start with Wanda Trytten, please.
Good morning, Your Worship and fellow councillors. When I think about the current housing crisis, my mind reflects on the city's 10-year plan to end homelessness. The reality of being one check away from homelessness weighs heavily on the minds of Calgarians. With skyrocketing rents, among the cost of living, and a government that claims to stand up for Albertans, our fundamental rights are being expunged. Despite the rapid building of housing within the city, renters are faced with barriers ranging from affordability on a fixed income, discrimination, credit checks, and long wait lists to secure housing. Many lovelies have expressed the frustrations of not only being redirected to housing resources, but also voicemail backlogs when doing housing check-ins. Although I appreciate the city's effort to address the housing crisis by building more housing, we must be mindful of the challenges associated with this. There is no denying that economic hardships have impacted one's mental health and created a level of distress within our systems. Now is the time to shift that narrative and meet the people where they are at. We need to recapture the unity of our community that brought us together during the 2013 floods. I believe that by utilizing our outreach teams, we can collaboratively take the stress off organizations and create trust, and through face-to-face interactions, we can ensure no one is left behind when seeking supports. Community members have shared that due to increased property taxes, their landlord is offsetting the cost of increased property taxes by increasing their rents, and in some cases, tenants are required to move within a year due to the city's rezoning their street. Calgarians deserve transparency and should receive some form of supplement to support them in relocating to another residence without the fear of losing their home. Secondary suites, although a great idea in theory, needs to be more inclusive to all instead of those who are in a higher economic bracket. For newcomers, individuals with disabilities, and seniors, we need to be mindful of creating safe communities that Calgarians feel safe raising their families or enjoying their golden years. I want to take a moment to share a thought that sparked out of a conversation with a community member living in their cars. With the high cost of housing escalating, my concern is why there isn't some form of supplement program to assist individuals with general maintenance in the event their car, now home, is vandalized, stolen, or impounded. I worry about the overall safety of lovelies sleeping in their vehicles and the risk of carbon monoxide poisoning. In conclusion, I humbly thank you for your time and respect the hard decision you have to make. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Let's go to Riley Makkar, please.
I have a PowerPoint presentation, if you can bring that up, please. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate all the council members listening to every one of us. It's not easy to sit through and listening to every one of them. I truly appreciate all of you. Before I proceed, I want to clarify my position. I am in support of backyard suite or garden suite, but I am in oppose of this blanket rezoning. Next slide. I want to talk in depth, but due to the limited time, I'm just going to talk about a few things. What are the problems we want to solve? What is blanket rezoning actually going to bring? What are going to be the real problems? And I have a solution that might help this housing crisis. So going to the next slide. So a lot of, what are we trying to solve here? We are trying to solve affordable housing, expanding the housing supply. It's not a housing crisis, it's more of an affordability crisis. That's what we are really trying to solve. Next slide, please. So a lot of people are talking about, building material, building cost. You are taking down a 600K house and you have two options. Either building a duplex that's going to cost $1 million each, or building 4 to 6 townhomes that's going to cost $650K each. I'm a realtor by profession. I'm in this industry for 3 years. How a young people is going to afford this? A lot of young people are rallying behind it. Okay, we need multi-townhouses, we need this. How you are going to afford this? Tell me this. You're taking out a 600K home and then you're going to pay $650K for a townhouse. How are you going to afford this? A lot of young people, I have to tell this to a lot of new young buyers. Sorry, you cannot afford a home. And this is not a solution. This is going to cause a bigger problem. Next slide, please. A lot of people are talking about material, supply, building cost, trade cost. Compared to Edmonton, look at the average residential price in 2024. Our average price, that's including everything, like the detached, duplex, semi-detached. Average price is $597,300. On the other side in Edmonton is $396,993. So prices has gone up from March 2019 to 2024, and the price gone up from in Edmonton. You can see the difference. Trade cost almost the same if you build a house in Edmonton, if you build a house in Calgary. Material cost the same. Home Depot is not charging more in Edmonton than in Calgary. Then why new builders are charging 200 to 250K more in Edmonton than in Calgary? Land cannot cost more. What do we have in this country? We have land in this country. Why is a person has to pay more in Calgary than in Edmonton? Everything costs the same. Next slide, please. Now, what is blanket rezoning actually going to bring? I'm not going to talk about water problem. Everybody talk about water, sewage problem. That's going to be the problem. But unaffordable housing, increased traffic. The time it took you today to get to this council meeting is going to double in 5 years if this blanket rezoning goes through. In 10 years, forget about the housing. The people, the young people who live in the city, you have to dream about owning a car, because parking is going to cost too much. See what happened in Toronto and Vancouver. They keep building up. And parking is a problem. They have to pay $500 to $800 for a parking. Owning a car would be a dream if this rezoning goes through. Next slide, please. The real problem is affordability crisis. The problem is builder monopoly. Builders are just charging more and more, and they're just making more and more profit. Whenever we have more supply, let's say the market get to balance, the builder are going to reduce the building, or they're going to just stop building. It's about just making profit. So what is a real solution? I come up with a solution. It's a little bit out of the realm, but let's go to the solution. Next slide, please. So my solution that I offer, take control of the new construction away from the builder. Because every time the market goes to the buyer side, they stop building. You should allow, the city should sell lots to the people. So priority should be given to the first-time home buyers, then second-time home buyers, and the people who are make affordable housing, then investors. We have to come up with a plan, and if a first-time home buyer buys a lot, then he can actually go to different builder and compare the prices. But right now, what's happening, there are only 5 to 6 builders that you have to pick from, and they can charge you whatever they want. That is the real problem. Housing is a basic right, but it's being treated as a business. That's the problem. And yeah. That's all. It's like you're trying to treating a cancer with the Advil. This problem.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Yeah. Thank you. Let's go to Louise Castonguay, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Louise Castonguay, and I've been a resident of Calgary for 44 years. I am opposed to the blanket rezoning for the city they want to implement across the city of Calgary. Before I continue, I request every Calgarian to listen to this 27-second audio recording. To be crystal clear on this, the two voices in the recording are those of Calgarians. You may not recognize the voices, but I will confirm the following names. First is our Mayor, Jody Gondak, and the second is Tim Ward, manager of the Housing Solutions for the City of Calgary. I choose to play this audio recording to prove, in my opinion, this public hearing is just a sham to our democracy, and to point out it's a waste of taxpayers' funds and hosting a public hearing when the outcome of this blanket rezoning across Calgary has already been decided weeks ago, as John Schmal had pointed out. So I'm going to just play this quick 27-minute video, and then I will come back.
Louise, I'm going to interrupt you for just 1 minute. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to hear your voice.
Oh, okay. I'll try to talk louder.
That's a lot better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You can keep going.
And I would love some clarity on this. The application that we submitted to secure the housing
Hi,
accelerator
there's someone on the phone that's got their...
things that we said we would deliver, and the federal government liked it, and they funded us. That deal is inked, is it not? Okay, so...
Fund, and you were talking to Tim Ward, and it was saying it has been inked. So I just don't understand if it's been inked, because a letter was sent out from the housing minister, Sean Fraser, to on September 14th, I believe, and the city agreed to all the terms on September the 14th, on the 16th, so 2 days later, and then announced this blanket rezoning. So I don't understand why, like Mr. Schmal said, why are we going through this? What will it change? The decision has been made. The money has been taken from the feds already. And it was really bad that we didn't have a plebiscite prior to this, and were notified prior to this and asked for our opinion prior to this. I just don't understand now, because the money's been taken, it's been inked, as they said. So what's going to change from this? I don't understand. Like, it's confusing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your presentation. Let's go to Jarom Lybbert, please.
Hello. I'd like to thank City Council for this opportunity to speak today. I know it's been a long week, and I appreciate the time you've taken to listen to us. My name is Jarom Lybbert, and I'm here just representing myself. I'd like to say some words in favor of the proposed rezoning. I'm a young professional renting a basement suite with my wife in Southeast Calgary. The design of our communities and housing affordability are very important to me and my family as we strive towards homeownership and a good quality of life. As Calgary continues to attract new residents, we need to rethink how we build and urbanize our city. Endless suburban expansion in the way we've been doing it isn't sustainable for a city of our size. While growing our borders is obviously a major part of building our city, increasing density is also necessary to ensure all Calgarians can have access to affordable housing and transportation. Personally, I enjoy the option to bike to work when I can. I currently live close enough to my job for it to make sense for me to bike. And I appreciate the bike paths the city has built so I can ride safely away from car traffic. As I look to get out of a basement suite, though, and live somewhere above ground in the near future, I find there are limited options available that are still close enough to my job to make biking convenient. Most places that I could afford to rent would make me more dependent on my car. The rezoning will make it easier for property owners to build denser housing options and give more people the ability to live close to their daily destinations, giving them more transportation options that can also be more affordable. I love the city and understand that there are many ideas being proposed on how to increase housing affordability and enhance the livability of Calgary. While blanket rezoning won't solve all the issues facing us today, I believe it is a great step towards enhancing our communities and building a city that works for everyone. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your presentation. Let's go to Regina McReary, please.
Hello, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. My name is Regina McReary. I live in Park Hill. I'm in Ward 8 currently, and I'm just representing myself, and I want to speak in support of our CG upzoning. I have the great fortune to be a homeowner, but that has only come about because of a great deal of good luck and good timing. We were very lucky to buy our first home in 2001, but even at that time, my partner and I were only able to do so by pooling resources with a friend. 3 of us bought a bungalow in Southwood, and then later, in a few years, our friend was ready to move on. We had to buy his share out. Then we had a secondary suite that we rented to another friend, and because of that, he was able to save enough money to get himself into the market, and we were able to afford to continue living in that single-family home. About 6 years ago, we sold the house so that we could downsize and move closer to the inner city, specifically so that we could reduce our footprint, so we could get rid of our vehicle and still have access to car share for when we needed one. Not having the expense of a car is a huge difference in the affordability of our current home. Over the course of this hearing, I've heard lots of people talk about how the price of property is so much less in the farther flung areas. But I think that that's only because they aren't putting all of the true costs into the equation. Owning a vehicle costs a lot more than people realize. Car payments, fuel, insurance, the looming specter of an unexpected repair. And then there's all the time driving back and forth. And the way that our city is built now, many people truly do not have a choice. If we improve density, it's not only about availability and affordability, it is about choice. It's about having neighborhoods that with enough population to sustain local businesses. Density means being able to have a transit system that runs often enough that it's actually of use to people. More density over a broader area will make it more practical for a car share or a e-bike or a scooter share scheme to cover a wider area and operate in a manner that is actually useful and reliable as a transportation option. All of these things would be part of the urgent climate action that we have to take as soon as possible. Approving RCG zoning will just be an important step on this journey, and I urge you to do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We're going to go to questions of this panel, starting with Councillor Rouane, please.
Thanks. Mr. Makkar. And clerks, could you put up his slide presentation? So on your slide for the 600K house in the redevelopment, you gave two options, a duplex or building 4 to 6. What about the option of building another single family? Why wasn't that included in this arrangement?
If you build another, like you're talking about only building one single family or two single family?
Both. No, I guess
if
that's
you're
two
building
other
only
options.
one single family, it's a bigger lot. Let's talk about North Glenmore or Killarney, or let's talk about Altador. If he has a bigger home on this bigger lot, the price you're looking at about 2.1 million.
So if you're trying, and kind of my point is like, there's a additional profitability, I guess, within the zoning that could actually be included on this slide, couldn't it? To show the spectrum of what the zoning provides?
The zoning is not, like if you're building only one place instead of one, it's going to be 2.1 million, but that's if somebody wants to upgrade their house. But the only option after the rezoning they're going to build is only duplexes on 4 to 6 multiple housing. The thing is, that's what they are trying to do. The reason is they are not trying to make it affordable. They are building this because this is unaffordable. Edmonton has the same zoning. Edmonton, you can go and build like multiplexes. But why aren't they building it there? Edmonton can still use more housing. Edmonton has still homelessness problem. Why the builders in Edmonton are not building these? Because it's not making big bucks. Here they can make big bucks. Every project, even though if they're building one house instead of 600K, or they are making a duplex, or they're building over 4 to 6K units, everything bringing them about $500,000. It's one project gonna take 3 months, and they're gonna make $500,000, and that's it. And they don't make this in Edmonton. They started to make this in Calgary, and they do make this more in Vancouver and Toronto because they can make more profit there.
So with all the cities doing this inclusive zoning where it's single family, duplex, row townhouse, have you seen a trend in what is actually being built? Because I still keep looking for that data. Like Edmonton's done this. What was the DP uptake for tearing down singles to row townhouses or duplexes?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
So with Edmonton having inclusive zoning, Vancouver's done it, all the other major cities. Do we have the data yet to show what the built form is after they go blanket zoning?
I don't have data, but I can make something for you. But in Edmonton, they're not even building that much, because I have colleagues in Edmonton and we talk about how the market is going in Edmonton and how the market is going in Calgary. Yeah. They are not building at the pace where they are building it here, not at the speed.
What's the market demand, like with your experience in your friends' conversation in industry, what is the demand between the two cities for desirability, like livability?
Again, Calgary is more desirable. That's why I live in Calgary. Yeah. I love this Calgary, and we have such a beautiful city, and we can go to Banff, we can go to Kananaskis. Calgary is so inclusive, and with so much to offer. Edmonton, not that much.
Well, that's going to make it harder because we're a more desirable city to
Yeah,
get
we are more
affordable housing.
desirable, but that shouldn't change. Okay, that I get it. We are more desirable. That should help in the second market. But why are builders charging more? Because there is monopoly. The building costs the same. The material costs the same. My point of saying this, I'm not even talking about infill. Let's talk about the new build that are building in new communities. Let's say Embleton, or let's say Mahogany, Auburn Bay, these new communities, and compared to the new communities in Edmonton, the building cost is same. If you're constructing, the builders are same. They're same builders in Calgary, same builders in Edmonton. The same material cost. Trade doesn't cost more if they build a house in Edmonton. And even if you take part, let's say land cost about 100K more. Let's say one lot cost 200K in Calgary, and that same lot cost 100K in Edmonton. It's builders are charging, making more profit. The same plans, builders have same plans, same size of lots, same cost. It's just they're charging more because they can, because of the demand. They are taking benefit out of it.
Yeah, and that's the hardest part. Like, someone's always going to have to subsidize affordable housing, and who is it? Like, if you have to pay the bank back at the end of the day, you still have to find a way to pay
It's not even about subsidizing. The problem is it's a monopoly.
Yeah.
The builders are having a monopoly. As soon as, let's say we have more supply tomorrow. Let's say, somehow we get more supply. These people who are trying to build infill, these people who are trying to build these multiple projects, they are going to stop. Right now, they can sell a townhome for $650K each. That's why they're building it. As soon as we get enough supply, they are going to stop building this. It's not going to get affordable. That's why I offer a solution in the end, if I can talk more about the solution.
Can you go back to the solution? I had a question about that as well.
Yeah, if we can go to the last slide. So my solution is, let the people decide the builder. What you have to go only to these 4 or 5 builders, Let's sell the lots to the people. And, we should make an account in the city of Calgary that people can register. Let's say I'm a first-time home buyer, I should get a priority. Every time a rezoning request comes, every time a developer making like a 200 or 300 lots, it should sell through the city. The city should prioritize. First preference should be given to the first-time home buyers, then to the people who are making affordable housing, and third to the investors. And then once people get the lots, then they should pick the builders. And there are only 4 or 5 builders, but the problem is you don't have much to pick from. Once people can pick the builder of their choice, there are going to be 100 different builders. And then it's going to make it affordable. That's my stand on this.
It's interesting because, you're kind of arguing for more government in housing, which is fun. But at the same time, aren't we, through blanket zoning, essentially giving every current landowner that opportunity to hire a builder and build a row townhouse or build a duplex or build another single family? Because if you currently own a house, we are handing you the land lift with the blanket zone that allows you to take the lot, whatever your measurements are, and see what you qualify to rebuild. So we're kind of doing what you're saying, but instead of us being the seller of the land, we're letting those that currently own the land do that.
But the problem is, these are well-planned communities. You are doing it in inner city. We have more land outside, do it outside. When we bought a house, or when anybody bought a house, they build the city, they plan the sewage like this, they plan the water system like this. If you're gonna build, and it's gonna increase the density. I moved from India in 2014. I remember my first day when I moved to this country, I woke up and I drove outside. There's so much land, it's so open, And I came from a country, everything is packed, And it's just the beauty of it. And that's why I moved. And I love this city. But now, again, you're trying to, pack, increase the density. And when we have this land, and so it just does not make sense. Yes, you are right in a way that, okay, you are giving the option to the people to build it more and more. But that's going to increase the density. I love driving in this city. If you want to go anywhere in the city, 15 minutes, you can go anywhere. 25 minutes, maximum 30 minutes, you can go anywhere in this city. That time has changed from the last couple of years. But if this zoning goes through, we get more and more housing in the density area. It's going to densify, and it's going to take more time. I will hate to drive. Whenever I go to Vancouver, Toronto, how many of you have drove in inner city Vancouver, Toronto? You know the feeling. That's going to happen into Calgary. I hate to say this to Calgary. The city is going to bleed.
Well, I think the challenge we have is we're still going to need to do greenfield, even if we rezone the city because ownership rights, that homeowner has the power to do with what they want with their lot. And we still need to create new housing without having evictions or renovictions. So it's this hard conversation, and I'm sorry I'm debating you, but it's
I know the problem. That's why I support the backyard suite, garden suite. It's going to increase more housing and it's going to help in the mortgage payments. But I'm in opposed of making like multiple suite, like 8 suites, 6 suites.
What's the fastest way for me to give everyone the backyard suite option?
Sorry, what is the?
So you say backyard suites is the great option for this council to give for everyone. What do you think is the best way for me to give it to them so that they would be permitted and allowed to do that?
What is the best way to permit? I would say make sure that everybody have enough parking. They can park inside.
Okay.
It shouldn't go out of they can build like in garden suite, they can build 3 suites or 2 suites. Right now, I think you have only 2 suites allowed. Either you can have a basement suite or a backyard suite. Maybe you can do 2. Maybe one person can allow basement suite or backyard suite. Then if a person is really, having trouble with the mortgage payment, they can still rent out the backyard suite. And also,
what should the process be? So if I want to give as many people that option, should I just select neighborhood? Should I just keep a permit process where whoever wants it applies to change their?
Just do it like we did in 2016. I think before 2016 we didn't have the secondary suites allowed.
Okay, so it's that was like a blanket approval. Okay.
Yeah. And we can do it in the same way, but we can also try it, make a try run. So let's do it in one community and see how it goes.
Any suggestions for what community I should do that for?
Sorry?
Last question. What community, if you had to pick a community to get that approval, which one would you say?
Well, we have seen what happened to Altador. Well, we have seen what happened in Madaloop, what happened in Killarney. Let's go with them, let's start with that because they're already ruined. And let's go. Yeah, see, in Killarney, if you compare 2 years before, nobody would buy a detached house in Killarney for $550K. Yeah. Now the people are paying $750K in Killarney because it's already RC2.
Oh, you're a gem. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand off, but thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Councillor Penner, please.
Thanks, Mr. Makkar. I have a couple questions for you. Clerks, could you bring up the slide, the cost comparison slide, please? Yeah, that's the one. All right. So you said you know a little bit about this industry in building.
Yes.
Okay, so that's $600K home. In order to bring it up to energy efficiency, so let's talk about windows, doors, appliances, low flow toilets. Let's not even talk about the cosmetic pretty stuff.
Yeah.
How much are you investing into that to bring it, to get new washer, dryer, new appliances, new furnace, good windows, probably going to have to re-shingle that house. At least 50K? Can we say fairly at least 50K?
Well, the thing is, even though if you buy a new house, re-shingling you have to do every 10 to 12 years. Washer and dryer you have to do every 10 to 12 years. And the funny thing is, these new houses that you're trying to build, and the houses that are already built is going to last more than these new houses. These new houses is not going to last more than 30 years. The old houses that stood for 70 years, they are going to stay for another 50 years. So if you're doing a cost comparison.
So what I'm trying to say, though, is they often still need investments.
Yeah.
Right? And so when we're talking about affordability, it is not always just about the purchase price. It's about all of the other upgrades that may be attributed to that. So when you're comparing a new product to an old product, it's not quite apples to apples. Is that fair to say?
That's actually a totally different thing. Even though if you buy a new house, you have to do the shingles every 10 to 15 years.
I'm just talking about initial investment, because this is what we're talking about here is just initial investment. So not long term, right? That $600K house that you've got up there versus that $650, so we're talking $50,000, that initial investment to have kind of a comparable like-for-like thing, is affordability actually just relative?
Let's do a little better. I put a $600K house that needs renovation. Let's buy a renovated house for $650 or $700, pay $50K or $70K more in the beginning, and then you have a renovated house.
Okay, so now you have one property worth $650K, single detached, or 4 properties worth $650K. So if we're talking about supply in a housing crisis, why should we not do rezoning when then that entry price is the same and we're just actually offering it to more people?
Madam Councillor, I moved here for a better lifestyle. If I have a better house, my kids can play in the backyard. It's a nice house, and if you're building 4 houses in the same price, that's a living standard. You're reducing the living standard. We have land outside. Like if we wouldn't have land outside the city, then would be a problem. The problem with Vancouver, on one side they have mountains, on one side they have ocean. They don't have land. In Calgary, we have land all around. Out of Stoney, built 20 new communities, built 50 new communities. Like we have land. Why do we want to cramp up everyone into multiple houses? And the problem is, once you start building these more houses, the person who wants to live in a detached house, he cannot live anymore because the price is going to go up. And then even though somebody like me who wants to live in a detached house, I have to live in a townhome because that's the only thing I can afford.
Okay, I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. Let's go to Councillor Chabot, please.
Same person. So this slide, where did you get your numbers?
I just checked out yesterday what was that townhouse that are selling for the new ones, about 650K. And duplex, this is just like number I see in the market, and this is just my ideal, but they're over that. Like the duplex, they don't cost 1 million. They're over 1 million. I'm just put a basic price. 600K used to be the price for detached home. Another home in Killarney, Glendale, they listed for 600, 650K. People who wants to buy detached house, they don't even get a chance to buy these detached houses. A builder buy up right away, unconditional, next day money, and people don't even get a chance to buy.
Right. So some of these 600K detached homes, do some of those come as renovated, or do they all need renovation?
600 to 650K, I would say they need renovation. Once you go over 650, like once you go 700, 750, that's are renovated. But right now, with the market going up and with like everybody is talking about you're going to approve it, so builders are ramping up and these like investors are ramping up and they're building everything they can. So they're buying everything they can, and they're just buying everything unconditional, and normal people are not getting a chance to buy.
You had another slide. I think it was the one right after this one. Yeah, that one. So on that slide, you show, no, maybe it's not that one. Yeah, it's that one. No, that one. Okay, so the second line down says average rent for 2-bedroom in Calgary, $1,642. Average rent 2-bedroom in Edmonton, $2,377.
Oh, actually, sorry, that's kind of got switched.
Okay.
So Edmonton is 1642, Calgary is 2377. Sorry, my bad.
It's reversed. Okay.
Yeah, it
I was going to say that.
Yeah, sorry.
Doesn't make any sense there. Okay, so Edmonton have had blanket zoning for what, almost a year now?
Yes.
And you say that it hasn't created a lot of new homes?
Yes, no.
Okay.
They haven't, because they are not making big money there. They are only the reason they are building it here because it's unaffordable. They would not make it if it's affordable. That's the reality.
Interesting. So, yeah, no, it's
like
very
a lot of
interesting.
people, I have seen a lot of architects coming here, a lot of Albertan builder coming here, and they're talking about, we want to reduce the footprint, we want to make multiple structure in one way so we can have more housing. Why aren't you doing this in Edmonton? You have an RCG zoning, go do it there. They don't want to do it because they won't make any money there. They will make enough money, but making $500,000 than 100K is just a big difference.
So you're basically saying those folks that are looking for affordability, that there's better solutions than this? What kind of, other than what you suggested? You talked about Greenfield. Do you see Greenfield similar type product as selling at the same price, or is there a difference between Greenfield townhomes versus inner city townhomes as far as the price?
Like the townhomes that are like outside, are talking about Greenfield, like the building on the suburbs of Calgary. The prices have been going up. Like it used to be 400, 450. Now nothing comes under 500. And yeah,
But that's still quite a bit less than inner city.
The townhouse supply is very short because it's the only segment that left affordable in the outer city. I'm not talking about the inner city. Inner city is still unaffordable, but in the outer part, it's the very affordable. It's still affordable, so it's high in demand, and we don't see much supply in there.
There's other costs associated with living outside of the center city, though. That was pointed out by one of the other presenters that said affordability is not just about the price of the house. I guess the question is, what's the value for money? And
Yeah.
some people argue drive to qualify as a first point entry, so I guess that's sort of what you're saying. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, no further questions for me. I just wanted to get clarity on that because
Yeah.
it just seemed out of context.
Yeah, sorry, that was just a mistake. Yeah.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Let's go to Councillor Sharp, please.
Thank you. You can stay right here. Sorry, just kind of got caught up in the conversation. Can we go back to the slide that shows the little diagram? Okay, so this is really interesting for me. So we talked about the 600,000 detached home as is. What no one's talking about is the cost of tearing down that house. Do you know how much money that would cost to tear down? I mean, because we think like a 1950 house.
Yeah.
Asbestos removal, upgrades to sanitary, storm, water.
Yeah.
You're talking between 150 to 200,000 just to tear down the house. Have you put any of that information on like your radar when you're doing your job? Because like if I'm going to build a new single, 250,000 a square foot.
I wanted to make a big presentation, but I was only allowed 5 minutes.
That's
if you
okay.
give me another chance, I'll bring all
Well,
of this.
I'm asking you some questions to see if you
Yeah.
can elaborate, because I think what's missing from everyone here in the conversation, Councillor Penner talked about upgrading the 600,000 detached. You want to put some solar panels on, maybe a secondary suite. We're talking 50 to 100,000.
Yeah.
But I tear down that $600,000 house. It's not 600,000 to tear it down. It's probably closer to 750.
Okay, yeah, it's 750 to tear it down, and then how much to build 2 houses?
How much do you think it is right now with your research?
I think it cost about $1 million or a little closer to $1 million.
So
to build.
250,000 a square foot.
Yeah.
$250 square.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So
that's 1 plus 750, so that's 1.75 million. And if you're building 2 houses, let's say 2 detached, they are selling somewhere from 1.1 to 1.3 million.
So I think your slides are a little bit off. I'd add some money to those. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions in the queue for this panel, so thank you all very much for being here with us today. We appreciate your presentations. Let's go to panel 153. Do we have Maddie Carter? Do we have Ash Khan? How about Gabriella Wong Ken? Do we still have Hillary Rubel?
Yep.
Thank you. Do we have Katrina Petrosenko?
Yeah, I'm here.
Perfect. I'm going to go into panel 154 to try to assemble 5 people. Do we have Nancy Pichonsky? Do we have Justin Michael Ryan Henderson? Do we have Barb Frohler? How about Ejlal Esladig? Christine Brodsky-Ingham? Okay, I'm going to go to panel 156 now. The reason I'm skipping from 154 to 156 is that 155 was held open for people who were signing up neutral, and no one signed up on that panel, so that's why you're seeing a skip, and I should probably stop and explain this. When the clerk's team proposed the panels, they did for, against, and neutral, and that's how they built the structure of the panels. As time went on, there were less and less people signing up for neutral, so those panels that were saved for them are not being filled. So if I'm skipping panels, that's the reason. It's not because I'm missing people. So we're going to panel 156. Do we have Maya Kambeitz? Thank you. You can come grab a seat at the front. I'll be with you in a moment, sir. Do we have Robert Miller?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Do we have David Toews? Do we have Chloe Leyao? Okay, that's the end of panel 156. Sir, you had a question?
I'm with panel 155. I signed in and sent my letters in. I have my copies, 15 copies over here.
What's your name, sir?
My name is Enrico Festa.
We are just going to look up what panel we have you on, if you just give us a moment. Yes, sir? 152. And what's your name? Okay, you can be on this panel, sir. Mr. Festa, if you just give us a moment, we'll sort this out for you, okay? Thank you. So this panel that we just assembled is going to start with Hillary Rubel.
Hi, this is David Toews. I just phoned in.
All right. Thank you for that. Okay, so the panel we have assembled is going to be Hillary Rubel, Katrina Petrosenko, Maya Kambeitz, Robert Miller, David Toews, and Ray Yu. I know it's 6 people, but we already called the names, so I'm sure we can manage this. Let's start off with Hillary Rubel, please.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name's Hillary. I'm representing myself. I live in Ward 7, and I recently graduated from the University of Calgary with a bachelor's degree in urban studies. I am in support of the RCG blanket rezoning because I am concerned about the state of Calgary's housing crisis, particularly for young people like myself. It is difficult to imagine moving out of my parents' house, let alone being able to afford a house one day. I worked a part-time job throughout my entire degree and will continue to work for the next year to be able to hopefully afford to move out and attend grad school. While I have been fortunate to live with my parents during my degree, I recognize this privilege is not for everyone. Accessing secure housing has been a significant challenge for my peers, forcing them to balance part-time jobs with their studies while facing rising rents. I believe RCG blanket rezoning will help increase supply and diversify the housing market. This will not only benefit students, but it can help Calgarians looking to downsize or older adults looking to age in place. Our housing needs change as we move throughout life, so there should be diversity of housing choices to support these options. Consider my parents' housing journey, from an apartment as students to a single-family home as they started a family, and eventually downsizing to a smaller duplex in the inner city as my siblings and I grew up. Their story highlights the importance of diverse housing options to accommodate Calgary's changing demographics. As a new graduate, I will be the first to acknowledge that change and uncertainty are scary. It is also guaranteed in life, and you can either embrace or resist change. Change is especially unnerving in our communities because there is a deep sense of emotion and identity connected to place. While it is natural to feel a sense of attachment to the familiar, it is also crucial to recognize that change can bring forth growth and progress. One of the aspects that fascinates me about cities is that they are constantly evolving and changing. Calgary is no exception. As city change, we have to remember who we are building for. By diversifying our housing stock, we can ensure that young people feel welcomed and can afford to stay while also being able to accommodate changing families and older adults. Diversity is strength. It's not only housing, but also people. At the end of the day, it is the people that make a community, and the houses are there to facilitate the community. Single-family homes alone do not make a community. I urge you to support RCG blanket rezoning as a step towards addressing Calgary's housing crisis, while also fostering vibrant, inclusive communities for all residents. I'd like to thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your presentation. Let's go to Katrina Petrosenko, please.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Katrina Petrosenko, and I live in Ward 7, and I'm representing myself. I'm speaking today in support of blanket rezoning. Like many Calgarians, I am all too familiar with how stressful and difficult and discouraging it is to try and find housing here. My search for housing this year left me feeling lucky to have a place to live at all. There are students sleeping in their cars and lining up around the block for an apartment viewing. If my biggest concern with this policy was townhouses being built in my neighborhood, I would not be speaking today. For the sake of all Calgarians, efforts to address the housing crisis need to be prioritized over inconveniences that are minor in comparison. I ask the Council that their decision on blanket rezoning not be made on behalf of single-family homeowners who are fearful of change. I ask instead that you consider every Calgarian and the net positive implications of this policy that are supported by unbiased data. The current zoning of Calgary is outdated and could never have predicted the extreme growth we have been experiencing. This change is overdue and Calgarians are suffering for it. We need to be doing everything in our power to address this housing crisis, and I believe it is this Council's part to support rezoning. I urge this Council to do what is right for all Calgarians and vote yes to upzoning. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your presentation. Let's go to Maya Kambeitz, please.
Good morning. I've been here before, but it's always a little nerve-wracking. First thing I want to say is I want to thank you all sincerely for the service this past week. It's been intense, and I think a lot of citizens, it doesn't go unnoticed. I'm a homeowner in Thorncliffe. I'm a mom. I also have over 15 years of experience in the housing sector. I currently lead Norfolk Housing, which is a mixed-income community housing provider. So housing affordability is something that I think about a lot. It impacts me and many folks I know in direct and indirect ways. I have kids, as I said, and I worry about whether they will be able to remain in community. I also have aging parents who have chosen to live in Chestermere precisely due to affordability. So I don't get a lot of free childcare. I've been following the hearings and talking to lots of people in and around my community, and I feel there are a lot of misconceptions about this proposed change. So I wanted to use my 5 minutes to try and reiterate some of the key points that I feel are getting missed and hope you'll take into consideration. So I'll try and be really brief. Firstly, strengthening and ensuring adequate supply across the entire housing continuum will improve housing affordability. This is evidence-based, not hope, and we've talked about the housing continuum a lot this week. Through various tools that you have, we can enable more supply, ensure it's diverse so that when and if needed, folks can move along the housing continuum. This is the reality. Many Calgarians are stuck along the continuum, and as their needs and circumstances change, we see bottlenecks along that continuum, and consequently, we see impact on overall demand and affordability. I do agree with those in opposition on one point. This one action doesn't solve the affordability, it doesn't improve affordability, but it was never intended or touted to as the action to solve the housing crisis. We have to remember it's important to clarify that it is one action that will enable one part of the housing continuum. Enabling supply across the entire continuum is key. It's why we have 32 other recommendations in the housing strategy that work in tandem with rezoning change. I've heard a lot this week, even from councillors, the current duplexes are not affordable. You're right, they're not because they're scarce in supply due to restrictive zoning, which creates risk, uncertainty, and delays, resulting in higher costs for those currently developing. Enabling missing middle housing form, in conjunction with all the other actions in the housing strategy, will see people move across the housing continuum because there will be improved supply and choice across the board. There will be an opportunity for social enterprises, cooperatives, mixed income housing providers, and homeowners who have needs for multi-generational housing, for example, to contribute to improving the supply and diversity across the continuum. It will enable some of the dual income households that we serve at Norfolk in the market rentals to enter into home ownership. And that opens up the $1,200 to $1,500 a month units to those who earn more modest incomes and perhaps allows those to move from basement suites into Norfolk housing. Finally, I want you to consider the following. This is one small part of a wider set of actions, and it can't be done in isolation. It's not being done in isolation of actions like investment in affordable non-market housing. I really feel we lack labor and developer capacity to realize a free-for-all situation where every established community will see redevelopment en masse. The assumed pace of community change that is causing opposition would require also hundreds of willing sellers in each community to suddenly decide to sell. Doing this also means that we have gentle change across many communities instead of a concentration of redevelopment in some of the very few. You have before you, I think, a very robust engagement process. You have a strategy that's developed by experts. It's supported by a highly skilled administration. But importantly, all of these folks are Calgarians who love this city. So are you. So, final note, I want us to continue to listen to each other. I want us to give each other gratitude and respect. But let's also be bold and innovative. Let's not forget the bigger picture. This is one small element, part of a series of actions that we need to take. And we all stand to benefit. Homeowners and non-homeowners, renters, low income, high income. If council leads us in the direction of a strong housing continuum. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Let's go to Robert Miller, please.
Can you hear me? Thank you, Mayor Bondeck and councillors. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to say that I live in Ward 1, Bowness, and I live in a single-family home, which is actually an infill in Bowness. And what I've been seeing over the last 20 years in that community is pretty much steady loss of small bungalows being replaced by very large single-family homes that kind of cost in about the $2 million range. And more recently, we're seeing a lot of carriage homes in the backyard where there's very little front or back lawn or trees. So this is basically what's happening under the existing system. And then I also fought against a 6-story condominium complex on Bowness Road that the reason I fought against it was because it was 2 stories above the area redevelopment plan, or what the plan would allow, and it was placed amongst residential housing. So I didn't think that was the right solution for that empty lot, but at the same time, if they had reduced it to a 4-story, I would have been okay with that. So I just want to say that I support the housing strategy and blanket rezoning because, we're seeing a loss of green space and trees and infills anyways, but huge single-family homes. So it makes more sense to me to be putting in multiple family dwellings because we do have a housing crisis, and it's a great way of both addressing the housing crisis and creating more diversity in your community. It's not just people who can afford $2 million homes. So I also want to say that urban sprawl, which is the other solution to providing housing, is really not a long-term solution. It relentlessly consumes natural areas. Ricardo Ranch is an example of a planned development that will eliminate an ecosystem next to the Bow River and replaces, and urban sprawl also replaces a lot of farmland in the process. So densification, it makes use of existing infrastructure, including schools, transit, bike paths. More people can live in neighborhoods that are already vibrant and desirable to live in. But I'm sure you're well aware of all these benefits, or you wouldn't be proposing this blanket rezoning. So I understand the fears about allowing developers to kind of build with very little restrictions, but I think it's necessary to get the housing stock that we need. In my neighborhood, it doesn't, the existing zoning laws aren't preventing more affordable small bungalows from being replaced by unaffordable, really large single-family homes. So I think it's hypocritical to allow that while preventing higher density housing. So the end result is the same. You have fewer residents to support your local business, and if you allow more members into your community, then you're building a stronger community. So I'm asking councillors to please support blanket rezoning because it will make Calgary a city designed for the future. My only concern is that when green space and trees are lost, and this is going to happen with higher density housing as well as massive single-family homes, they should be replaced either on street sides, neighboring properties, local parks, and I think that's something that Calgary really needs to consider. We're losing trees due to multi-year drought, and we need to protect and restore the tree canopy that we have. So it doesn't mean we shouldn't densify, but it does mean we have to consider access to nature as being equally important and require developers to act accordingly. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. If you can hold tight and go back to mute, we will finish the speakers, and if there's somebody with questions, we'll get back to you. Next up is Mr. Toews. David Toews.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, go right ahead. You've got 5 minutes.
Yep. All right, I'd like to thank Council for allowing me to speak. My name is David Toews. I live in Ward 7 and speaking on behalf of myself. I want to start off by noting that a few days ago, someone came to Council to express indignation that anyone other than property owners be allowed to speak at Council, characterizing such people as nothing more than drifters who make no material contributions to the city. I'm concerned that some on Council might even be confused why non-property owners would be coming here to speak. So I should hope that the majority on Council are not in fact living in the 18th century and recognize that land title is not a requirement for citizenship, but I'll also make note that this hearing process in fact reinforces this outdated attitude. Every property owner in the city was directly mailed a notice about this hearing. I rent. I did not get such a notice, but this proposal affects more people than just property owners. So, I hope the nobility assembled today is willing to tolerate commentary from a peasant drifter such as myself, who has lived most of my life in the city, worked and paid taxes in the city, in a previous career even worked on the construction of C-train platforms and other significant structures in the city. Today, I work a desk job. I was lucky enough to be able to step away, though I did not know until the last minute if that would be the case, as you heard me calling in just late. I suspect a lot of busy working people are unable to join and could not sneak in. You hear lots of people unable to show up, but a lot of those same people, working people, are struggling to find affordable housing. I've been assured that Council recognizes we are in a housing crisis, but some on Council seem to think that you can address a crisis without meaningful action or by delaying action with time-consuming and expensive plebiscites. If we are indeed in a crisis, action needs to be taken immediately. There's been a lot of hysteria about this change to base zoning. Some are showing up here to suggest that a row house going up next door would be the end of the world as we know it. Some seem to believe that buying property entitles one assurance that a neighborhood will never change. But neighborhoods constantly change, regardless of zoning. The city is a living, breathing thing, not a picture postcard of the day a home was constructed. Infills replace old homes even without rezoning. Many neighborhoods in the city, in fact, have seen a decline in population over the years. This hollowing out is not sustainable. It means city services are stretched thin over wider swaths for fewer people. A few row houses on a block might only serve to bring such neighborhoods back to the density where they were originally designed for. This zoning change is one of several proposals brought to Council to address the housing crisis, and frankly, it's a very modest one and will do very little to address the crisis on its own. Personally, I'd like to have seen the recommendations to upzone the city much more aggressively than base RCG. If reactionary property owners are going to flip out and call this minor change an apocalyptic communist plot, we might as well have gone for something more ambitious. If members of this council are spooked into inaction by the rabid responses of those who live in an alternate reality where time can be frozen and row houses are a harbinger of the end times, then I'm not sure we can count on council to take any meaningful action on the housing crisis. So please, vote yes for base RCG. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your presentation. Let's go to Ray Yu, please.
Good morning. My name is Ray Yu. I live in Ward 7. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My wife and I came to Canada 24 years ago, and I have lived in Calgary ever since. We didn't know anyone at that time, and undoubtedly, this new country, new language, and entire different system posed tremendous challenges for us. Like every immigrant that has come here, for better or for worse, we made a decision to face this challenge head on. I'm grateful that I can call Calgary my adopted hometown. Today, I would like to unpack 3 points. Number 1, Canada is on the verge of economic crisis. Year after year, the federal government has proved that the budget cannot be balanced by itself. They have also constantly demonstrated they do not know how to manage our hard-earned tax dollars. In fact, aviation debt has surpassed the $2 trillion this year. The recent budget has projected another $39.8 million deficit. Number two, the housing crisis is constructed narrative for the federal overreach. Now, why do I not buy through the storyline? Let me give you some context. The city issues a housing needs assessment report every 5 years. Both reports issued in 2023 and 2018 identified that 1 in 5 Calgarian households cannot afford their housing. Whether the method of calculation is appropriate is debatable. My point here is that the term housing crisis was not used in 2018 when Calgary was facing the same level of housing shortage. I acknowledge that there is a current housing shortage, and that has been true for many years due to the unbalanced supply and the demand which were caused by the federal policies. Regarding Housing Accelerated Fund contribution agreement, Calgary will get $5,500 federal money for each unit. I don't believe this can solve the manufactured housing crisis. This performative agreement is to meddle with the provinces and the municipalities. The agreement was signed October 2023. The first advance was received last November. I hope this hearing is not performative, and it is not too late for change. This leads me to the final points. Number 3. This constructed housing crisis is being used to divide us, to distract us from holding those responsible accountable. Remember, no government produces a penny. The magic of government is the power to redistribute and reallocate wealth. Rampant social programs, government handouts, irresponsible immigrant policy, all are either funded by your tax dollars or will burden your children. Many have spoken eloquently that blanket rezoning is not the real solution to this housing crisis. I welcome rezoning, a reasonable rezoning, and against blanket rezoning. Blanket rezoning means low zoning. I am not afraid of any change. I'm afraid of the government dictating our lives and of losing our freedom of choice permanently. So I ask city councilors to vote no on the motion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your presentation. We're going to go to questions of this panel. Let's start with Councillor Walcott, please.
Thank you. This is for Ms. Kambeitz. Maya, please. A lot of your presentation and a lot of the conversation we've actually had at council has really been about people have commented like 97 actions are great. This one action is not effective, and you had commented in your speech that they're all meant to work together. And so I was wondering if you could possibly speculate or even just comment on what do you think the impact would be of kind of leaving the housing market stagnant as it is on even the effectiveness of the other recommendations?
Yeah, they were intended to work together, and that's because we know that folks move along the housing continuum. They move from, so all the way from emergency shelter to single detached and everything in between. People, as their life changes, as they enter new stages of their life, have to have that choice and have to be able to move along the spectrum. It's just what happens. We know that as a fact. We see it at Norfolk Housing, where I work, where we've had folks that are currently, as I mentioned, occupying units where they are a dual income family. They could probably afford a row house, but that supply is just not available, and maybe they want to stay in the community of Sunnyside. And so they're kind of occupying a unit that could be affordable for someone who makes a little bit less. I started my homeownership journey. It was a lot of luck and privilege, but I started in a CMHC row house, 1950s row house. And at the time, I had my first child, and that was ideal for me. And I was able to move into the community of Thorncliffe, again with a lot of luck and good timing. But now the prospect of, my parents who have chosen to live in Chestermere are quite active. They're in their 60s, they're very young. They own a business here in Calgary, but affordability has been a big concern. And I really worry about, what will happen when they need to downsize, when they need me and my brother, who lives outside of Calgary because of affordability. And so we need to be able to have that choice. We need to have that diversity of supply. And so if we don't do this, it makes it much harder to do the other things. So this small element enables us to allow that movement across the housing continuum as circumstances and needs change. Does that answer the question?
You brought up something that I'm going to follow up on as well. You had mentioned that with regards to the moving up the chain of housing, is that you have residents that if they were able, they would, but they're unable, so they don't. And if they could, someone else with a lower income would fill that spot in the organization that you run. What do you anticipate to happen with regards to the incomes of the families that you're supporting as housing gets more and more expensive? Because my assumption for you would be that you'd end up having clients every single year that actually are increasing in their income because they're not served by the market as is. And so you're actually finding that you have more families with more money and they're still not able to live in the market. How does that impact those who are on the further end of the spectrum?
Yeah, they end up occupying those suites. So we've had lots of instances where, we've housed a family receiving rent geared to income, and then those children graduate and they start working full time. They start going to school or they start working and they start bringing in additional income. And so now what we do at Norfolk Housing is we allow them to move into a market. They can stay in their home, their rent simply changes. But that subsidy then is still, we have to replace that subsidy somewhere else in our stock, right? So it's a wonderful thing to be able to stay in your community. I think if there was some choice in that community and at different price points and some diversity, those families could move into that housing and open up that subsidized unit, which in effect gets turned into a market because now they pay a little bit more based on their income. So now you're occupying typically a below market unit, but you're also occupying a unit that could be transitioned into a subsidized unit for someone that's waiting for that, is in transitional housing. So that's kind of where we see these bottlenecks where folks are not able to make that move because the supply is so homogenous that there's not that diversity of supply and there isn't a lot of choice. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Are you finding at all in the last few years that the time that people are spending with your organization is extending?
Absolutely. The turnover, I think in typical for-profit, purpose-built rental is anywhere between 20 and 30%, maybe higher. In Norfolk Housing, we do, 50% is rent geared to income. The other half is, social impact renters. It's market housing. We don't have a profit motive, so that we don't have a triple bottom line. We have a double bottom line, so we can keep even those rents a little bit more affordable, about on average 10% below market. But what we're finding is that because there is a lack of supply, again, across that entire spectrum, folks are staying longer. So not on the market side, the worst turnover that I've seen in my 15 years has been 8%. It averages between 5 and 10%, and that's really low. That's really low turnover. We purchased an existing purpose-built rental building in 2018 on 10th Street. It was, full market, and my board had this great discussion about, how do we transition this into that wonderful mixed income model? We have not been able to do that since 2018. We've been able to integrate about maybe 3 non-market subsidized units, because folks have nowhere else to go. There isn't that capacity to move along the spectrum because we lack that choice. So it's been, my math is off, since 2018, yeah, I think 3 out of the 24. So you'll have to do the math on that, but that's a very low turnover.
I thank you for being here. I appreciate the answers.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's go to Councillor Wong, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mayor, please.
Oh, me again?
Yes, please. Thank you. Over the course of the last 9 days now, we've heard about supply, demand, we've heard about affordability, we've heard about rising costs, and I'll just summarize quickly that given the situation, we're finding a lot of these housing being more unaffordable because prices are going up. What we've also heard from a number of people are that they're getting evicted from their properties because the owners themselves want to redevelop their properties, right? So in other words, it's exacerbating the rental problem we've got right now. So I guess my question to you is, and not because of Norfolk, but because of your role with the Housing Task Force, how do we ensure that we can control that eviction process?
That's a really good question. I think it's a really complicated problem, and I think you've heard over the last week and a half that there are other players that contribute to how successful we are, or also contribute to our, I guess, propensity to fail in addressing this. So I think there are lots of things that the city cannot control. There are things that you can enable. There are advocacy measures in that housing strategy that encourage, entice, enable other levels of government to come through. I think by not doing this, you're creating scarcity, right? And so you're seeing redevelopment in very few communities, and I think that's where you're kind of encouraging that profit motive. You have to do this and all the other things, right? You need more Norfolk housings, and there are measures in place in that strategy to do that. We don't have deep pockets, but for example, in a major corridor, I'm just going to use Center Street because I live really close to that. There are lots of homes that are coming to the end of their life cycle, and so an organization, a social enterprise like Norfolk or cooperative, you reduce the risk for them if they have some certainty around what they can build there, and that can enable. By simply doing this, that enables all those other forms of housing to also grow, right? So I think it's really a question of, it's complex. There are lots of things that we need to do. How do you prevent rent evictions? I think you have to, allow for some competition. You have to enable nonprofit housing providers, and again, you have to enable that supply and that diversity of choice, so that folks are not sort of limited to one type of supply and then are churning these units over.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you hit kind of the nail on the head there, is having the variety of choice in the entire continuum. But the question again is, what can we do to avoid that? So I'm gonna speculate one thing, and that is, yes, we can speak to advocates, we can speak to or try to influence senior levels of government to do more on their part. But within our realm, right, particularly as it relates to the market housing portion of it, the notion right now is we blanket rezone everything possible. That's in one regard, opening the floodgates to allow more and more people to come, because we're taking that step away from them. We're taking the public hearing out of the equation, therefore faster. The other approach, though, I'm just wondering if you can speculate on. The other approach, though, is if we were to regulate differently the RCGs. In other words, what's been proposed, do it by LAPs, do it by, as Mr. White from Civic Works suggested, it's only 10,000 properties. Let's just be precise about those ones, eligibility. Some of the councils have suggested shortcutting the approval process. Would that have the effect of regulating the supply, therefore not exacerbating the rental opportunity and evictions?
That's something that I'd have to, take some time to consider, because I'd have to sort of look at it specifically and in the context of, all of the other measures. So I don't know that I can speculate to that or add much to that at this point, but happy to have that conversation with you.
Okay. Yeah. The last question, again, the Housing Affordability Task Force had a lot of good recommendations in there. Some of the critiques that have come forward was it may not have represented as many people that could have. The real estate market, the builder market, and the property owners themselves. Is there a way that we can have their voices added to the equation, or is it too late for that?
No, I think you just did it. I think you just spent a week and a half.
To the overall task force recommendations, though, not just to the blanket part.
Well, I think the task force did its job, the job that council asked for it to do. We also did consult, and we did have many meetings as we looked at the entire housing spectrum. We did have meetings with stakeholders, and then many of us live in community, represent different segments of the population. There were a lot of discussions. I mean, we had that discussion at our community advisory group meetings, and I had it with residents. So I think we delivered what was asked of us, and I think there's a lot of work that perhaps the public wasn't aware of, and maybe even council, around the engagement with various stakeholders to help understand, what is the problem that we're really trying to solve. And we came to the conclusion that it is about the housing continuum, and we need to enable all levers. We need to enable all partners to be able to get out of this, and that includes inviting others to the table.
Okay, what is it referring to as going forward? Is there anything you can do going forward to add their voices?
Well, I think I have access, we all have access to counselors. I think there are many ways to get engaged. And so I think this has provided really good opportunity for fantastic discussion. It's a really difficult conversation. There are a lot of folks for whom this is, it's difficult for them to show up here. But, I would hope that as part of, what councillors do in community is you host engagements, and you've been able to get some of that feedback. So I would say, I'm not sure what more we could do.
Okay, I thank you for your good work. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Councillor Putmans, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Wu, please. Mr. Yu?
Yeah.
You mentioned in passing that government is restricting change. I'm not sure what the context was. I forget. I couldn't jot it down in time. But if you could expand on that a bit.
The city housing assessment report, you mean?
I think you might be talking about the rezoning. I'm not quite sure what you're referring to.
Yeah, I welcome rezoning, but not a blanket rezoning. The blanket rezoning doesn't mean no rezoning. You can build what you want.
But you said also that government is restricting change.
What do you mean the government restricting change?
Restricting choice, excuse me. It's just a note I made. I just, listening to you, said that in passing, and I'm not quite sure what you meant by it.
Okay, if blanket rezoning motion passed, so that means in the future you can build what you want. So the resident, there's no input. So that means you have no choice, restrict the choice. I ask you a question?
Yeah, no, could you expand on that, please? I'm not sure I follow.
So if you blanket rezoning, so you just build what you want. Before you put the sign there, the residents can put some inputs, comments. But now if you rezoning passed, so you don't need that consultation. So you take away the inputs of the residents.
You do have input at development permit.
Because if rezoning, you can build what you want.
Well,
so as long as in that 12 meter, below the 12 meter height, you can build 8 units, 10 units.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Councillor Penner, are you removing your request? Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions for this panel, so thank you all for making the time to join us today. We appreciate it. I'm going to attempt to put together the next panel. Enrico Festa, sir, you'll be up first. Please grab a seat down here. Do we have Julieta Perucca on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Please remain on the line, and let me ask, is there anybody from previous panels before 156, that is in the room that's waiting to present? How about anybody on the line for a panel before 156 that is here now? Okay, then let me go to panel 157. Do we have Melody Mossing? Do we have Leslie Mueller? Do we have Vernon Yu? Do we have Kathy Roberts? How about Michelle Lelace? Okay, I'm moving forward to panel number 159. Once again, 158 is a blank panel, that's why I'm not calling it. Panel 159, do we have Russell Copley? Do we have Gregory Scott Finney? Do we have Kim Jock Rock? Do we have Jason Corbett? Okay, I'm moving on to panel 160. Do we have Anthony or Dorothy Boyer? Do we have Maria Bott? How about Hong Wang? Regan Yee? Katherine Zia? Hi, Katherine, you can come on up. You'll be on this panel. I'm going to move to panel 162 to see if we have Charles Beckler. Do we have Gloria Kanuka? How about Austin Sursen? Shevaughn Smith? Sydney Beres? Okay, let me ask, do we have anybody on the phone line that's waiting to speak? Okay, then we're going to go with 3 people on this panel. Mr. Festa, please start us off.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Thanks for giving me a few moments in order to address Council. First of all, I will start by apologizing that I don't want to deliberately insult anybody in Council, so take my apology in advance. I've lived in the city of Calgary for 68 years and have been shafted by the city of Calgary on numerous occasions, falling on deaf ears. I'll first read my letter to Council and then expand on it with your permission. Anyway, regarding this public hearing, we, the owners of 320 46th Ave Southwest, Rose and Enrico Festa, are not in favor of upzoning our community. We enjoy a unique block of neighbors who know and get along extremely well. Our kids and our grandchildren can play safely. We look after each other. Our older neighborhood has had our streets, roads, and sidewalks repaired after 36 years. The most they did on our street was 1 layer of coal tar. Our services were installed in 1952 or so. The city wanted to do the road first, and then they came back, this is 2 years ago, and wanted to do the sidewalks. We organized to correct the order since it was backwards, which would have caused damage and more money.
As a result, homes being remodeled and services had to be reconnected, cutting the main lines. The water service is a 1/2 inch and our sewer system is a 6-inch cast iron installed in 52 or so. Although we were told that this would be upgraded 38 years ago, it was never done. The system cannot handle the existing demand on the services. Further density would tremendously strain our quality of life. We have paid extensively more taxes than other areas and have received no extra services. We paid not to live in high-density areas or area where townhouses are still paying for the benefit. When 4637, a condo on Stanley Park Place, was built on McLeod Trail, an additional 8 stories was added so that if McLeod Trail was expanded, Stanley Park would relinquish frontage. The parking stalls were $300 a month, so we inherited their vehicles on our streets because of density. We already had a problem when the street cleaning comes around. Our streets never get cleaned because their vehicles plug our streets. The common sense answer to build is to build where lots are the cheapest and most affordable to keep costs down. Upgrading the building codes so that the strong structures can be built. What you're building right now, and I've been building all my life also, is nothing but pigeon coops and fire traps. The old days, they had cinder blocks with cement core filled from the basement all the way to the attic, and core filled also with sand for soundproofing. If one unit catches fire, just like it did on the landmark across from Humpty's on McLeod Trail, the whole place will all go down in smoke and pose a danger not only for the buyers, but also for your neighbors. Lastly, there's a problem of a lack of a sufficient labor force in order to be able to build this, because everybody pushed their kids 30 years ago, university, higher learning, nobody went into the trades. Now there's such a shortage, it's ridiculous. The method taken to make this decision was not democratic by any stretch of the imagination. Jeremy Farkas had constant townhouse meetings that were packed and didn't require $950,000 to be spent in advance. He constantly surveyed their opinions and got it in writing and brought it back to council. He represents a real democratic process. The order from Justin Trudeau to get funding for these new homes in Canada was conditional to his demands. I was a diehard Liberal until JT came to power. His dad was fabulous. The plan lacked honesty. Calgary and Southern Alberta sends $22 billion more to Ottawa than we get back of our own money. We can solve our own problems. If we look to the States and see Trump dictating to their citizens, are not we headed in the same direction? We elect officials to serve our needs, our wishes, and get our permission. In consulting, you don't consult without getting the homeowners. So you want to change policies at the cost of the homeowner that sacrificed his life. Now today's kids are complaining that they don't have affordable housing. They didn't have to contend with 12% or 20% or 24% mortgages and had to do 2 and 3 jobs. When I first immigrated to Canada, there were as many as 3 families in one home. My mother in 56 worked 18 hours a day, 7 days a week for $26.
Sir. You're just at time. Thank you very much for your presentation today. I'll let you know if there's questions for you in the queue.
That was a quick 5 minutes?
It feels quick, doesn't it?
Because I had wanted to make an address to Dr.
I wish you could, sir, but your 5 minutes is up. If there are questions for you, I will let you know.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Let's go to Julieta Perucca. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
In the session. So my name is Julieta Perucca, and I'm the co-founder and deputy director of The Shift. And we're an international organization working at the intersections of housing, finance, climate, and human rights. Since our inception in 2020, we've been working really closely with local governments across Canada, supporting their efforts in addressing the housing crisis. Most recently, we've worked with the City of Vancouver, Edmonton, Saskatoon, Kitchener, and Halifax on the issue of encampments, as well as issues of housing affordability and financialization. Just for reference, I'm not from Calgary. I'm currently in Ottawa. But again, it's a real pleasure to be with all of you and to speak to you today. So I'm here to both congratulate the city on their new zoning initiative, which is one that we support and we really do urge the city to pass. But I also do want to provide a bit of a word of warning. So while measures to create gentle density and increase the stock of available housing are necessary to address the housing crisis, they alone will not be successful. And without adequate protections, they may actually fuel speculation in the housing market and therefore inequality. In particular, the Shift, our organization, is observing some key market conditions for the rise of financialization in Calgary, as well as other cities. And despite a burgeoning housing crisis, a supply-side approach, like the one that has been put forward by the planning department, may not suffice in finding an effective solution. I do really want to challenge this economics 101 approach, which we've heard a lot of people in support of, because we do think, and we have seen all over the world, that it can produce the same outcomes that we already have, and that is a lot of too expensive housing and a lot of businesses actually making profits without a real meaningful contribution to solving Calgary's housing crisis. Please don't get me wrong, I do think Calgary needs more truly affordable housing, and in particular rental housing that meets actual housing need. And yes, some of this will have to be newly built, which can be targeted through revamped zoning laws. That being said, the idea that the city can build its way out of this crisis without things like stronger tenant protections and a fairly radical change in its relationship with housing providers and developers may find itself to be erroneous. I'd like to just quickly zoom out at the national level and suggest that in its current form in Canada's housing system, the wrong demands have been driving housing supply, and supply is actually satisfying the wrong demands. Evidence indicates that the rental housing market and system have been distorted by institutional investors using their outsized resources to leverage profits from housing. Because of that, households are often being squeezed and priced out. In 2022, more rental units were built across the country than in the previous 3 decades, and yet rents continue to increase. Recent data also shows that rents have increased in pretty much every jurisdiction across Canada. This suggests that what's being built is satisfying investor and business interests, but not necessarily the interests of people in Canada, and particularly those in Canada who are most in need. The question that we have to really pose ourselves as we're developing housing plans is, what's the magic number of new builds that will suddenly see rents decrease to levels that low-income households can afford? And how long will this take? And do you really think that housing providers will build if they think over time they're actually going to lose their profit margins? Is there a model out there that we can point to where developers have actually passed on any government benefits and savings to tenants? We ourselves haven't seen one to date. We haven't seen it internationally, and we definitely haven't seen it in Canada. So I guess, why can we expect this to change? I would propose that a supply-side response needs to be situated within legislative and policy conditions that will produce the right kind of outcome, an outcome that ensures that the right people, those in actual housing need and not investors, can access these new units, and that rents and housing prices are set at levels that people can actually afford. To do so would address the financialization of housing, which was defined yesterday, so I won't reiterate it. But whilst the financialization of housing has greatly taken hold in Canada, we are beginning to witness recognition by governments, advocates, and even some industry actors that efforts are needed to constrain the actions of investors and ensure housing is protected as a fundamental human right. To reckon with the financialization of housing, properly reform the planning regime, we must properly reform the planning regime so as to create a housing system that works for everyone. The government of Calgary should integrate human rights.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm
into
sorry,
all of their activities.
Julieta, you're just at time. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Worries.
If you stay on the line on mute, I'll let you know if there's any questions for you.
Great.
Thank you. Let's go to Katherine Zia, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to read from this because I'm nervous. Hello, Madam Mayor and Council members. Thank you for your time and consideration. My name is Kate Zia. I'm a resident of Ward 8, and I'm opposed to blanket upzoning. I've lived in Calgary since 1998 when my young family relocated here for work. We lived in Ward 3. Our goal was to live closer to downtown, which we knew would take sacrifice, thoughtful planning, and sweat equity. We did all this, and in 2005, we were able to take a calculated risk and buy an infill in Ward 8. Also in 2005, I became a single mom with 2 young kids. Our new home was now a sanctuary for our emotional and mental health, but I had to work 2 jobs and have people live with me to help share the costs. I did all this because I had chosen our home with specific intent and decided to stay. For personal and family reasons, I wanted to live in a quiet neighborhood where my kids could plant roots and where we could know and rely on our neighbors. I also wanted an urban walking lifestyle near green spaces, pathways, services, transit, and a walkable elementary, junior, and high school. I tell you all this to illustrate why I'm opposed. After nearly 20 years of hard work creating my life, blanket upzoning denies me of my choice of where I want to live. If I wanted to live in a high-density community, I could have chosen one of the many near downtown and saved myself significant money. But that was not my choice. And yet, I know we need solutions. I think this public hearing has provided a wealth of ideas to draw from to find those solutions. I want to thank all the speakers at this hearing who have shared their diversity of expertise, experience, and thought. They've done a lot of heavy lifting, and I hope Council will reflect on their many well-researched, data-driven presentations to return a no vote on blanket upzoning. But then let's get back to the LAP process, which is already underway, and let's address the more problematic components of this plan. And on this point, I hope Council will find a compromise on the one-size-fits-all RCG housing form. The RCG design is disruptive to people who've invested their blood, sweat, and tears in their homes, and to force it on established communities is wrong. Trading one set of wrongs for another is a deeply flawed plan, and we can do better. And yet we need to be innovative and move forward with change so we can provide solutions to people looking for quality rentals and to people looking to get into the housing market. Well, how do we find this compromise? I believe the RCG design as it exists is the crux of the problem. What was described as a max 4-unit complex is actually a potential 12-unit complex with minimal or no parking requirements on a single 50-foot lot. These 12-unit complexes have further potential to increase in number of units, height, and lot coverage, depending on the size, the shape, and location of the lot or the lots purchased side by side. This is extreme and has foreseeable negative outcomes. I suggest we remove the mid-block option for RCG. Mid-block options could be duplexes or 4plexes only with parking. Decrease the size of the RCG unless it's on a bigger than 50-foot lot, and move them closer to the main thoroughfares and transit. I urge Council to protect the trees, the inner city tree canopy, and the trees on these properties, however possible. I also urge Council to consider making these multi-unit complexes strata complexes, so there's accountability to a collective. This will ensure better maintenance of the property and make the logistics of recovering from a housing disaster or a natural disaster more manageable. Then start to roll out this plan. Start in communities where the schools are at risk of closure and on properties closer to transit hubs. Prove you can deliver this plan and deliver the results you want to achieve. Plan and invest in Calgary transit and make it more safe and efficient. Impose stricter standards on who can build these complexes. Fly-by-night builders who cut corners to maximize profits leave our next generation of renters and homeowners trapped in debt for a home with significant deficiencies. In summary, while there needs to be a plan for different types of housing for Calgary's growing population, I urge Council to show leadership and recognize that this plan, as it is close, but it needs improvements. With a more collaborative approach, like the LAPs, we can come up with a better plan. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Appreciate it. Let's go to questions of this panel. Let's go to Councillor Spencer, please.
Thank you, Mayor Gondek. My question is for Ms. Perucca. Are you still online?
Hi, yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. You went into great detail on an issue that I also have concern around with the commercialization, commodification of our housing stock. Can you talk a little bit more about how you see City Council specifically mitigating this moving forward in this conversation and even outside of this conversation?
Yeah, for sure. And let me say that I do appreciate that City Council is in a difficult position just because of issue of competences, right? Of course, the province and the federal government are much better placed to regulate investors and investor landlords in particular. But at the same time, we have seen some things that could be curbed. For example, anything that's around in the permitting or licensing world, to make sure that any subsidies or any type of, really any subsidies or any public benefits that are given to developers, and in particular financialized developers that you know are going to end up being financialized landlords, aren't given out unless they're attached to very specific social benefits. So, for example, ensuring that in the city of Montreal, they had what was a really good bylaw, the 2020 bylaw, that required all developers to ensure that 20% of the housing stock was extremely affordable or public, 20% was affordable, and 20% was the right size for families. Unfortunately, they also had a clause that said that that developers could pay to an affordable housing fund, and every single developer chose to pay rather than to build that type of housing, which is suggestive that what we need is really robust bylaw that says this is the type of housing we need, and that's exactly what these developers need to build without any type of loopholes. So that could be one way to go about it. The other way to go about it would be, we've seen in cities in Europe in particular that have established really strong anti-eviction protections, even with private landlords, so not just public landlords, where they really go in and mitigate against evictions. And by forcing developers or forcing institutional landlords to look at other alternatives aside from eviction, you basically undermine the profit model, because the profit model right now stands on increasing rents, increasing fees, trying to evict tenants, and then changing the profile of the building to have more higher income tenants. So by making it more difficult for them to evict, then you change the profit model, and then they have to kind of go back and reassess what their business model is. So those are kind of some small ways. There's more ways, and I'm happy to discuss offline and provide you with a more coherent answer as well.
Yeah, I would be very interested in that conversation. Just listening to you right now, I mean, I do believe a good chunk of what you've outlined is in the CHMC, like their rules in terms of how the funding gets applied. So yeah, I'd love to get into some of the details. I'm not on council, the expert on this, but I certainly talk to those that follow this conversation really closely. I mean, unless you have something very specifically for council to do right now, I just hope that you can, I hope you can see that, and thank you for saying you see the situation that we're in right now, that, yeah, going one way or the other isn't going to get us out of this issue. That's what I heard you say, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And please, I know that I'm on a panel right now that's mostly people that are against it, but we are supportive of the zoning bylaw. We do think it's a necessary step to move forward. But yeah, and one of the things that we do with a lot of municipal governments is actually go through proposed plans and just try to see if there are any loopholes that could be kind of abused by developers or people who are trying to seek profit from the housing market, and try to close those. So we're open to doing that as well, if that would be of interest.
Okay. It's first name dot last name at calgary.ca. Would love to carry on the conversation.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Great. Okay.
Thank you. Let's go to Councillor Wyness, please.
Thanks. Ms. Perucca, sorry, your comments when you were discussing tenants and long-term tenanting and trying to make it harder to evict, how would that model work with short-term rentals, and would you see a push for more of a commodification of housing if that were the case?
So when you say short-term rentals, are you talking about things like Airbnb and vacation rentals?
Because the landlord has a choice. They can either put their property as a long-term tenancy, but then if you look at the risks involved in that versus there seems to be more of a perception in the market that there's more legal avenues if there's non-payment in short-term rental. So how would you mitigate that risk?
So normally what we're trying to do is dissuade any type of bylaws that allow short-term rentals to be the preferable rental model. Because what we want is for all units to be within the long-term rental market. So we are working pretty closely with actually municipal governments from all over the world, and we're establishing an international observatory on short-term rentals to try to figure out what are the best policies to address short-term rentals, because short-term rentals drive speculation. So we're seeing in cities like in cities like New York, for example, with just a 0.1% increase in short-term rentals over a month, it creates over $100 of unaffordability for long-term renters. So the impacts of short-term rentals are really drastic on the rental market, and that can be a really easy way to target the financialization of housing.
No, that's great to hear.
I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
No, it's something I've been looking at, so that's a good answer, but it still also adds an interesting crux, because I think you spoke against this, but then you say you're for it, so definitely an interesting conversation. Thank you.
No, sorry, and I've been for it this whole time. I said at the beginning that I wanted to congratulate the city on the zoning initiative, and then at the end, I also wanted to say that I wanted to congratulate the city on it. It's just that, we just want to make sure that this zoning plan ensures the protection of human rights of people living in Calgary. That's all.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions of this panel, so thank you to the three of you for joining us today. We appreciate your presentations. Did I just hear somebody on the phone line? Okay.
Sydney Beres here is on the phone line.
Hi, sorry, tell me your name again.
Sydney Beres from panel 162.
Sydney Beres, 162, okay. Thank you. And Gabriella Wong Ken.
Sorry, Shevaughn.
You are here? Okay. Sorry, who's this?
Shevaughn Smith from 162 as well. I'm sorry, I just called in and didn't know which panel it was.
No worries. Is there anybody else on the line?
Yes, hello. Russell Copley, panel 159.
I'm sorry, I'm going to need your name again.
Sorry, Russell Copley.
Thank you.
Panel 159. Thank you.
Appreciate that. So I've got Gabriella Wong Ken, I've got Sydney Beres, Shevaughn Smith, and Russell Copley, sorry. Okay, we are going to assemble the four of you into a panel, but I'm going to do something first that's going to take a couple of minutes. And I'll tell you why I'm doing this. I'm going to call the names of people who were registered that were not able to keep their time to speak. So as I do this, if you're listening in and I read out your name and you're still interested in joining us and speaking, if you could please get a hold of the city clerk at, is it public submissions at calgary.ca? Perfect. If you send an email there and say that you missed your opportunity but you're still interested and if you're available at the moment, that would be perfect. I will make sure that you get onto a panel. In the meantime, I'm going to read all of these names, so bear with me for a couple of minutes. If you hear a name of somebody you know, please let them know that they're still eligible to speak, but they do need to come or phone in. So panel 1, Tyler Pubbin. Panel 2, Allison Farrell, Randy McCord, Marianne Clark. Panel 3, Michael Desolé and Tudor Dinka. And I should clarify, I don't need you to respond right now if I read your name. You just need to know that you are still eligible to speak if you call in or if you come in. Panel 6, Abraham Bayin, Edward Williamson. Panel 8, Andrew Voorhees, Erica Voorhees, Leslie Farrar, and Doug McNaughton. Panel 11, Carl Pereira. Panel 12, Kristen Campbell, Heather Templeton. Panel 13, Ranvinder Chahal. Panel 15, Darlene Banfield. Panel 17, Gaurav Moda. Panel 18, Douglas Ferguson. Panel 19, James Logan. Panel 20, Dean Gardipi. Panel 21, Jonathan Werner, Diane Stopforth. Panel 22, Amit Dund. Panel 23, Emily Fellers-Robertson, Jeffrey Hodel, Chanel Mather-Shapiro. Panel 24, Ashley Van Dam. Panel 26, Adam DeVelter. Panel 27, Nasir Ahmed. Panel 28, Neil Abiyankar, Donalda McBeath. Panel 29, Matthew Knoll. Panel 35, David Conkin, Andrew Bitts. Panel 36, Michelle Dreffs. Panel 37, Benjamin Paye. And if you have already come in and I've read your name again, please forgive me. I'm going to cross-reference all of this with the clerk's team, obviously. Panel 42, CeCe Yang and Barbara Hogan. Panel 43, Jesper Woodard. Panel 45, Nicole Zhang. Panel 46, Bill Woodward. Panel 48, Barbara Johnson, Paul Maroney. Panel 49, Gordon King. Panel 51, Christian Ramesh. Panel 52, Fuhong Zhang. Panel 54, David Locke. Panel 56, Lance Dowd, Dennis Johnson. Panel 57, Lerma Vitug. Panel 58, Adrian George. Panel 62, Michael Stewart. Panel 63, Tony Din. Panel 64, Chad Larson, Greg Hartzler. Panel 65, Francisco Alanis. Panel 66, Randy Chomistek. Panel 67, Nate Pike. Panel 69, Alexa Briggs. Panel 71, Keely O'Neill. Panel 72, Barbara Meyer and David Pickering. Panel 73, Pichu Kaliniak, James McKay, Jesse Chernell. Panel 74, James Dixon. Panel 76, Donna Zubkowski. Panel 77, Susan Glenister. Panel 78, Sandra Harper, Olga Knight, Anila Samji. Panel 79, Jim Edwardson, Laura McGregor, Don Blood. Panel 80, Steve Wong, Andrew Howland. Panel 82, Paul Judd, Derek Metaituk. Panel 83, Bernadette Butler. Panel 84, Wayne Saunders, Simonetta Actison. Panel 85, Lyman Zollinger. Panel 86, Mary Jensen, Michael Colborn, Ronald Kelly. Panel 87, Jim Lavery. Panel 88, John Harder, Jeffrey Rogers. Panel 89, Wendy Bolin, Amber Stephen, Claudia DeMaio. Panel 90, Joan Karlowski, Nancy Bozek. Panel 91, Susan Fox, Regina Verdelin. Panel 92, Holly Bauer, Trudy Robson. Panel 96, Linda Mott, Sharon Colbert. Panel 97, Kelly McDougall, Lindsay Perry. Panel 99, Evgeny Zhiromsky. Panel 100, Linda Dunfield. Panel 103, Heather McCullough, William Gallagher. Panel 104, Tyler Henschel, Mel Miller, and Dr. Navjot Gill. Panel 105, Cheryl Miller, Lindsay Arndt. Panel 106, Tom Perozok, Jordana Langford, Catherine McDermott, Chris Arndt. Panel 107, James Faulkner, Mike Bowerman. Panel 108, Paige Faulkner, Dana Miller. Panel 109, Frank Diker, Patrick Pavlika. Panel 110, Jamie Martin, Josh Mann. Panel 111, Sano Stante, Stephen Shawcross. Panel 112, Marcus Steiner, Tracy Pinney. Panel 113, Bretton Smith. Panel 114, Josie Kirkpatrick, Rachel Tulk, Wayne Karlowski. Panel 116, Nathan Biluck. Panel 117, Sandra Sobko. Panel 118, Alex Spence. Panel 119, Jan Pels. Panel 120, Philip Harding, Paul Lennon. Panel 122, Rosaline Akinoken, Andrea Paul, Dean Timko. Panel 123, Lloyd Clipliff. Panel 124, Ian Eady. Panel 124, still Nizam Jiwa and Ryan Bogue. Panel 125, Aidan Bogue, Autumn Malsberg Bogue, Sukhminder Wera. Panel 126, Brett Pierce, Liam Love, Peter Schneider. Panel 127, David Knight, Michelle Kupczynski, John Whelan. Panel 128, Timothy Skeet, Teresa Wright. Panel 129, David Coots, Kathy Metcalf, Don Metcalf, Roger Hogan. Panel 130, Ian Monroe. Panel 131, Brett Finlater. Panel 134, Serge Paquette, Jeff Russell, Tracy Villeneuve. Panel 135, Karen Chow. Panel 136, Candace Ross. Panel 138, Gurman Sahota. Panel 140, Andrew Ebgase, Ji Zhang, Chris Edwards, Chris Koichopoulos. Panel 141, Amy Tesfaye. Panel 142, Kenneth Haddock. Panel 143, Davin Suominen, Rhoda Ekanabor, Raphael Sabito. Panel 144, Lulit Nagasi, Wandwozen Tabor, Martin Maben. Panel 146, Brian Donaldson. Panel 147, Emily Marceau Briggs, Rosalina Templanza, Regina McReary already spoke. Okay. Panel 148, Aldo Larata. Panel 149, Lori Clausen. Panel 150, already spoke. Panel 151, Brett Harris, Monica Duarte Ramirez, Esther Sutherland. Panel 152, Andy Wolflag. Panel 153, Maddie Carter, Ashfaq Khan, Gabriella Wong Ken, who is here now. Panel 154, Nancy Pichonsky, Justin Michael Ryan Henderson, Barb Frohler, Ejlal Elzadig, Christine Brodsky-Ingham. Panel 156, Chloe Leyao. Panel 157, Melody Mossing, Leslie Mueller, Vernon Yu, Kathy Roberts, Michelle Lelace. Panel 159, Russell is here, never mind. Gregory Scott Finney, Kim Jock Ruock, Jason Corbett. Panel 160, Anthony or Dorothy Boyer, Maria Bott, Hang Wang, Reagan Yi. And panel 162, Charles Beckler, Gloria Kanuka, Austin Surson, and we have Shevaughn Smith and Sydney Beres here. Okay, so those are all the names of people that were unable to come for their time. I won't read those names again, but if you are one of those people or you know one of these people and you're still interested in speaking, please come in or call in and we'll make sure to accommodate you. With that, we're assembling our panel. First up is going to be Gabriella Wong Ken, then it will be Sydney Beres, then Shevaughn Smith, and then Russell Copley. Gabriella, please lead us off.
Hi, Council. My name is Gabriella, and I'm a registered nurse and a community organizer, and I live in Ward 6 in Wildwood with my parents. I am in favor of citywide rezoning. Over the last week, I have unfortunately heard a lot of misinformation. If people took the time to read the City of Calgary's Engage website and the housing strategy, they would understand that rezoning does increase housing affordability. More supply means we will have higher vacancy rates and lower rents, more people moving within the market and freeing up homes for other people, more competition which lowers prices, and more secondary suites. Admin has clearly communicated this, as well as confirmed that public hearings will still happen with development permits and that 95% of rezoning applications already get approved. So this motion would save a lot of time and money. In addition, the housing strategy recommends using city-owned land to build non-market housing, and this work is underway. So people who are concerned about this and the need to build non-market housing, it's been addressed. The strategy, including rezoning, has not been rushed. In fact, it was approved in September, and recommendations were first brought to this council in June of last year. Rezoning addresses our dire need to build missing middle housing for people like me. I don't make enough to put a down payment on a house, and I also don't qualify or need non-market housing, so where do people like me live? This city has given me many opportunities. I have a great network, I've been involved in a lot of community work, and I truly love living here. Unfortunately for myself and a lot of my peers, the cost of living has made it difficult to attain a home or find stable rental housing, despite having post-secondary degrees and full-time jobs. I'm moving out in June, and the only reason I can continue to live in the west end of Calgary is because I'm going to be living in a new garage suite in the backyard of my sister and brother-in-law's house. At a cost of approximately $285,000 in an inner city neighborhood, close to transit so I can commute to work, local businesses, amenities, and most importantly, my family, this housing type is perfect for me. It's past time that we accept that a single-family home is not the only type of home available, and it also doesn't always fit everybody's living needs. We spent almost 4 months on permitting alone, and this is in a neighborhood that's already zoned for secondary suites. Current parking minimums for suites is ridiculous. Had it not been for the driveway in the front of my sister's house, I would have had to build a parking pad for my garage suite. We are quite literally building housing on top of parking, and there's ample street parking, but I still need a separate parking spot. For folks that are concerned about parking, what exactly is the street, at the side of the street, supposed to be used for then? And I really would implore you to just park in your garage, or to not be so concerned about the parking needs of your neighbors who may not even move into your neighborhood and may not need additional parking. For people that say they're for density and affordable housing but against rezoning, I don't believe that you would support affordable housing in your neighborhood. In 2018, Wildwood opened a new affordable housing complex, and the public hearing prior to was filled with many of the same fears that are expressed now and anger over densification. The reality is that communities need to progress. Our cars, phones, technology all adapt to the needs of our population, so it is only normal for neighborhoods to do the same. We can't continue to have over half the city zoned for one housing type. That actually reduces the freedoms that homeowners have. We can't have it all: a walkable, bike-friendly, transit-accessible community with car dependency, local businesses and amenities with no population density, and low taxes, natural parks and wetlands with urban sprawl. Housing for all without secondary suites, townhouses, and non-market housing, and row houses. One day, we may all need missing middle housing. Maybe it will be because you can't physically or mentally maintain or mobilize in your house, you want to downsize, or you're just lonely. If the only thing in your neighborhood is single-family homes and old bungalows that need money and time to renovate, or giant single-family homes, you're going to have to move. Move away from the community full of character that you care so much about, the amenities and supports, streets and areas that you're familiar with. I see this on a regular basis as a nurse, and it's very hard to tell someone that has no housing options in their area that they need to move or go on a wait list for a care home that's very far away from where they're used to living. Citywide rezoning is definitely not going to change neighborhoods overnight, and it may not even drastically change some for 10 plus years, but it's a major part of a comprehensive housing strategy that was passed by this council. It will most definitely impact the long-term trajectory of housing affordability and housing choice in Calgary. There are many things council can't do. You can't increase wages, you can't implement rent caps, you can't make food prices at the grocery store lower, but you do have the duty to act in the best interests of the city, and we need to address our lack of diverse housing supply and increase housing affordability.
Thank you for your presentation. You're just at time. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Let's go to Sydney Beres, please.
Hi, my name is Sydney Beres. Thank you for allowing me this time to speak today. Today I'm sharing my own personal views representing myself and asking that council continue to do the work they started in September by approving the RCG upzoning motion before you today. I grew up in Calgary, I left for university, and I returned after completing my bachelor's degree about a year and a half ago. Calgary is my home. Over the past year, I've worked at the University of Calgary Students' Union, focused on ensuring students' voices are heard and students are supported throughout their degrees. Time and time again, housing has been my main focus of my job. Students continue to struggle to gain housing, and many students coming to Calgary find themselves in very challenging situations because of the difficulty of securing housing. Last September, I worked with the University of Calgary Students' Union VP External to educate students about the housing strategy coming before City Council. There were many students who volunteered to help, but one individual's experience stuck out. When I asked if he had difficulty at finding housing, he kindly informed me that he was still trying to find accommodations. It was many days into the semester at this point, and he still couldn't find permanent housing. I believe this was a testament to the importance of increasing the housing supply and improving the RCG upzoning. Students like him had to start their studies without permanent housing because of the extremely low vacancy rates, and I sincerely hope no student ever has to do that again. I am worried this city is becoming a place for many young people to move away from. I say that because for me, it is very true. This fall, I am attending law school, and I've decided not to apply in Calgary because it didn't feel like Calgary would support me in the same ways that other cities would. So I'll be moving to the East Coast at the end of August for school. But as I leave Calgary, I think about my future, and I'm not sure if I will ever choose to live here again. All my immediate family is here, so I'd really like that chance. But I'm not sure if the cards will be in the cards for me in 3 years when I start articling. My sincere hope is that these concerns of mine remain unfounded, because Calgary's strength lies in the fact that it is a place where everyone can find a place to call home and feel welcome. I hope that by passing this motion and leading to the gentle but meaningful growth in the housing supply, this legacy continues on, and that in 3 years when I graduate, I can look at Calgary as a top contender for starting my career as a young female lawyer. It has been an immense privilege to live and learn on this beautiful land for which myself and many of us are uninvited settlers on, land that was cared for by Indigenous people long before many of us or our ancestors resided here. And as we discuss a motion that will impact how we live on this land moving forward, I think it is necessary to acknowledge the stark inequities that particular groups face when it comes to housing insecurity. I believe that this motion will be a small step in the right direction at addressing some of these inequities by allowing for diverse housing to be built and built faster. This is a pivotal step to take along with all of the other recommendations presented in the housing strategy. And as a wise person said before me many panels ago, I believe there is lots to go around. It is time to approve the RCG upzoning because there is enough to share with others and create more housing. We can share the resources of Calgary and continue to learn from each other as we all welcome a few new neighbors on our streets and in our communities, because it is the collective we that makes a city and not an individual or specific group. RCG upzoning will mean allowing more people to be part of this strong collective and adding to the amazing we that makes Calgary what it is. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your presentation. Now, before I go to the next speaker, I just want to confirm, do we have Chloe Leyao as well? Hi, Chloe. If you want to grab a seat at the front, we'll make you the 5th person on this panel. With that, let's go to Shevaughn Smith, please.
Hi there. I hope you can hear me.
We can.
Okay, thank you. Hello, and thank you for allowing me the time to speak today. This has been a big marathon for everyone involved. I speak on behalf of myself, my family, my 2 children, partner, and I live in a row home. And we were privileged enough to be able to move to this one after happily living in a 2-bedroom condo. Both my husband and I have been renters paying other people's mortgages at one time. We made the decision together to trade in square feet in house for time spent commuting to work and instead spend it with our family. With access to bus routes and being able to walk to many places and bike to work, we are able to be a 1-vehicle household. We don't take up parking on the street. We don't have a lawn that needs to be maintained and watered, but instead use the multitude of green spaces around us and then get to know our neighbors. I know others that would like to be afforded that opportunity, but there is so little stock of this type of housing. I wonder what the real estate market will be like when our children are adults. If no major change is made, I wonder if we will live hours apart or if they will have to remain living with us. Lastly, I don't see opposing this change as a fiscally responsible thing. The time council has already spent on every development permit change, the sprawl and all of the brand new infrastructure Greenfield requires, environmental concerns. Supporting this change is forward thinking into the next decades and beyond the next election. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Appreciate your comments. If you can hang on, we'll see if somebody has questions for you at the end of this panel. If I could hear from Russell Copley next.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Dear members of Calgary City Council, my name is Russell Copley. I am speaking as a recent transplant who moved to Alberta for a Master of Science at the University of Calgary and surprised myself and my mom by making Calgary home. I moved from Vancouver in 2019 and have been a renter in Hillhurst, Ward 7 ever since. I love my neighborhood, this city, and the roots that have bound me further and further in this place. I'm here to speak in favor of the motion. I would like to show a perspective that's informed both by data and by experience. According to Rental.ca's April 2024 update, the city of Vancouver, my hometown, was ranked as having the second most expensive rental prices in Canada. Calgary, meanwhile, was ranked 23rd. When I say this difference was life-changing, I cannot overstate that. I joke with people that I'm so much happier in Calgary because I no longer have to choose between rent and food, but it's hardly a joke. When friends and family from my hometown visit, they comment that the ambient mood is lighter, more lively, more community-oriented. When people can afford to live, the city comes to life in a way that cannot be forced or hand-waved by branding campaigns. I can afford to be a season ticket holder to the Roughnecks. I can afford to attend trivia nights, bites out, coffee with my partner. However, ever since 2019, there have been changes. According to the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, vacancy rates have gone from 4% down to 1.4%. The average cost of rent has gone from $1,191 to $1,573. The same lighter, livelier, more community-oriented feeling is still there, but as a new Calgarian, I've noticed it has been weakened. City Council, there is a way to breathe new life back into the city. While the motion is not a silver bullet, any moves to increase housing supply over the medium to long term implemented now will have economic, social, and psychological benefits for the city of Calgary. CMHC, cited earlier, suggested in late 2023 that Canada needed about 3.5 million additional housing units by 2030. We will not get there debating precisely which land use changes are permitted on which specific blocks forever and ever. Take it from a former Vancouverite, housing instability is fatal to quality of life by any measure. We need to be bold enough to allow changes and build from there, not one block at a time. City Council, I know we all love this city. I know we all care for it and the voices and opinions of all its residents. I know as well that there's opposition to this motion. I implore you to act decisively to protect what is impossible to force, the pulse of a city that is truly alive. That comes through being able to afford the most basic needs, beginning with shelter. That comes with being bold and working to ensure that the motion is not the end of the line. We can build dense instead of out. We can have a roadmap for lower housing costs for all residents. We can work to value the voice of every Calgarian by ensuring that we all have a roof over our heads and the resources to invest back into our communities. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your presentation. Let's go to Chloe Leyao, please.
Thank you, Council, for allowing me to speak today. My name is Chloe Leyao, and I'm a newcomer from Kelowna in the Bachelor of Design in City Innovation degree at the University of Calgary. I am in favor of blanket rezoning, which I've summarized in 3 points. First, the neighborhood and cities you live in are always changing. You and I know that Calgary is no exception to this. Alberta has called for people from all backgrounds: immigrants, refugees, students, and those looking for more opportunities. We cannot control the influx of people, no matter how many people come up here and shake their fists at those damn feds. In fact, it is a good thing that we are warmly accepting newcomers into Calgary. Many of these people are just looking for better lives, those who are fleeing global conflicts, those who are getting priced out of the cities they grew up in, and those who are experiencing firsthand the effects of climate change. So the only thing we can do about having more neighbors is to adapt, keep up with the demand so we can make housing more affordable. Second, us younger generations want to slow or stop the urban sprawl of Calgary. These tentacles of Strodes are costing us millions of dollars on infrastructure cost, subsidized by our tax money, and these communities have become increasingly unattractive to younger people. When me and my friends drive out to the burbs, we see cookie-cutter houses extending past the horizon, and we feel mortified at how it almost looks soulless. It only proves the point that the neighborhood character is born from the people, not the way houses look. We have also seen the research on how car dependency and suburbia has deeply affected our youth in terms of isolation and loneliness. If you want to talk about quality of life for the current and future generations of Calgarians, we need to increase housing density in the inner city instead of expanding on greenfield even further. It puts eyes on the street and creates a more diverse and vibrant community. Additionally, we need to take a yes and approach by improving and expanding our public transit system, which decreases our dependence on cars and gives back the dignity of the pedestrian and agency for our youth and those who do not drive. Lastly, there's been a lot of debate on the representation of people speaking out on the issue. If there is one thing I've learned during my grueling hours in the university, it is that the people most affected by the housing crisis are severely underrepresented in these decisions. The most affected by the housing crisis, marginalized people of color, queer folks, people experiencing housing insecurity or houselessness, etc., have bigger things to worry about, like putting food on the table and keeping up with living costs, than new developments in their neighborhood. You've heard many people from community associations lecture you about how they're not being represented or consulted. However, do these community associations consult those who are young, those who are vulnerable, those who are renting in their neighborhoods? Why do those affected the most from housing affordability keep being denied more housing because, God forbid, a row house is a few meters closer to the street? A housing crisis requires crisis urgency, and I urge Council to vote yes on blanket rezoning. We need more vacancy of affordable housing by moving more people up the housing ladder. Housing is a human right, and we all must act like it. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. We're going to go to questions for this panel. Let's start with Councillor Putmans, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Ms. Gabriella Wong Ken, please. Hi. Thank you so much for your very positive presentation. I wonder if I could pursue your insights a bit further. Why do you think some people are so concerned about this?
I think it's a variety of factors. I mean, I think for people around my age, a lot of us, I have one friend that has been able to buy a house in Nolan Hill, which is very far away from where the rest of us live. There's just, the prospect of buying a house is so out of reach. And I also have friends who are holding on so tightly to their rental properties because they're afraid that their rent is going to go up and that they can't afford to rent in another place in the inner city. Most of our lives are concentrated in the inner city, especially for people my age. So I think it's really unfair that we don't have the opportunity to maybe continue to live in those spaces. I think that's why it's really important for people. And being able to have more housing diversity just gives us more options on where we might be able to plant roots in the city. Right now, I feel like we're all just kind of floating in an abyss, kind of waiting for the next thing to happen. And a lot of us just don't feel like we can actually plant roots here.
Thank you. Do you look at this program, I had a thought when you were saying things. I'm trying to put together a good question for you. The work that we're doing, we expect will lend to more density, which will lead to a more walkable community in the long run. Do you have those expectations?
I do, yeah. I think, we can look at other communities in the city where that's already happening. If you look at Sunnyside or Kensington or even West Hillhurst, which is nearby to Kensington, the walkability of those neighborhoods is a lot more than, say, Wildwood, for example. I mean, we have a lot of people in our community who want local businesses to be in the community, but the reality is we had one coffee shop and it recently closed because no one's going to it. There's not enough people around the neighborhood, and most people are just traveling down the way to go to 17th Ave or near Shevaughn or Killarney, where there's a lot more businesses, there's a lot more walkability. They just did a whole bunch of repaving of areas around there to make this place more walkable. They put in a bike path along 37th Street, for example. That's where the density is happening, so that's where those things are happening. In Wildwood, when you look at the infrastructure, there's really nothing over there except for Edworthy Park and single-family houses. That's it. So I think that, yeah, with density, if you, again, look at other neighborhoods, that walkability is there.
Over what time period do you think that will take before you get the kind of services you'd love to see in Wildwood?
I mean, I think it will take some time for sure. As I said, like, this rezoning isn't going to change neighborhoods overnight, and some neighborhoods might not even see changes for another 10 years from now. You know, when you've looked at some of the modeling too, like, you can see that the pace at which redevelopments will happen, it's not going to be a quick fix. But the reality is that we're behind. Like, we should have been building more houses many years ago, and now we're trying to catch up. So I think it is going to take some time, and I think that for folks struggling, it's hard to accept that as well, because a lot of them are in need of housing right now, and that's, again, why there's other things in the housing strategy to build more non-market housing, for example, to use city land. So I think all of those pieces need to work together so that we can actually make some progress. And yeah, if we're stuck at this one policy change, I think it's just gonna delay the process even further.
Thanks for your passion and your foresight. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Let's go to Councillor Walcott, please.
I'm coming back to you, Gabri. Full disclosure, we know each other very well. So the question that I wanted to ask you was because you actually were very forthcoming about the price of your backyard suite.
Yep.
$248,000.
$285,000.
$285,000.
Yep.
Okay, $285,000. It's worse than I thought. Can you maybe just like walk me through, because this is something we've never even talked about fully, is why, like, what drove you that route versus something else? And essentially, like, that's you building it, right? Like, that's not something that was just capital that was available for the homeowner. That's you coming building it. So what drove you that direction versus, say, like a similar condo if it was available?
Yeah, so one reason is availability. My parents, as I said, live in Wildwood. My sister and my brother-in-law, who have a 3-year-old daughter, they live in Killarney. So I really wanted to live like in the west end of the city. I also come downtown very often. I take the train to work. I work at Peter Lougheed Hospital, so I'd like to be close to transit. And the reality was that, yeah, there wasn't a lot of availability for condos within the area that was within a budget that I could afford. I actually first started looking at the new townhouses and condos, the luxury townhouses that are right across the street from Shevaughn. And I probably could have made that work, but you know, my sister and my brother-in-law had just moved to this house, and my sister was like, you know, we need to build a new garage, so why don't we make space or make use of the space and actually build a suite, since we're starting from scratch anyways. And yes, the cost difference is quite significant when you think of a normal just garage without a suite. It's probably about 30 to 50K, depending, but they also are doing me a favor in knowing that I really want to live in that area, and you know, we figured out a way to sort of finance that. And for me, I don't need a single family home. Like, I don't need a big house. It's just me. I'm a single person. And so this type of housing really is perfect for me. It also allows me to be really close to my family. I'm really close to my sister and her kid, and also close to my parents. And potentially one day, maybe my parents can move into the garage house when they can no longer sustain living in their house in Wildwood. So there also just adds way more options for my family for housing.
I want to Okay, so this is something that I do, and I don't know if you do it, but like when I was first able to get into a home when I was teaching, I maybe kept Googling housing prices to find out, like, did I miss something, right? Like, was there something else out there? Have you kept tabs on that townhouse that you were looking at before to see where it's at now?
I haven't kept too much tabs on it, but I know it's at about 600K. That was last time I checked, and that was like when they were first building it, and so it was kind of like a deal that you got if you got in earlier. And then I even was looking at, like, again, because I'm just a single person, like I was even looking for smaller houses in, say, Bridgeland, for example, or in Renfrew, where the homes there tend to be a little bit smaller. And yeah, the price of most of those was, again, in that 600 to 700K. Plus, I would also need to be doing renovations to actually like keep that, to maintain that home, because a lot of the bungalows did need significant work. So just the investment was just not worth it for me when I could build a brand new garage suite, essentially like very lucky that I can basically customize my new place for a fraction of the cost. So it was an easy decision for me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions for this panel, so thank you all very much for taking the time to be with us today. We appreciate it. I'm going to attempt to assemble a new panel. So I'm on, actually, before I go to the numbers, is there anyone here that was on a panel before 162 that's here now?
Yeah, my name's Nate Pike, and I'm here.
Hi, who's this, sorry?
My name's Nate Pike.
Okay, Nate, you were on which panel?
67, I think it was.
Okay, thank you. We will get you on. Is there anybody else that was on a prior panel before 162 that's here now? Hi, what's your name? Okay, and which panel were you on? 154. 154, okay. Anybody else? All right, then. Panel 163, do we have Bob Benson? Do we have Joanne Atkins? Do we have Cheryl Ritter? How about Chelsea Reed? Robin Windsor? Okay, we're gonna go with the two people we have. Oh, hi, who's this?
It's Cheryl Ritter.
Cheryl Ritter?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Hang on the line. We're having a little trouble hearing you, so you're gonna need to speak up when it's your turn, but we will make you speaker number 3. Let's go to Nate Pike to start us off, please.
Hi there. I'll be honest, I had a bunch of notes and thoughts prepared that I wanted to share. For some context, I live in Ward 3 in the north end of Calgary, and I'm in support of the rezoning. But that being said, I do have some very real concerns about the implementation piece. One of the things that I wanted to speak to has to do with kind of the idea of not doing a big thing badly, which is something that I'm really quite concerned about for the area that I live in. One of the benefits of increased densification is for sure the walkability. It is for sure all of those advantages. But one of the problems that exists in North Central Calgary is that we do not have the transit access that we should. We have been promised for literally decades that we were going to be getting access to a C train, and it appears with the recent provincial announcements that's been delayed even farther. And so one of the things that I would ask council to consider while they are, well, let me rephrase that. One of the things that I was going to ask council to consider while they're considering this decision is how they can ensure that the areas that are likely to see increased densification are getting the resources and the amenities that they need. I had a bunch of other talking points that I wanted to hit on as well, but ultimately I would humbly submit the argument that it doesn't really matter. And the reason why I say that it doesn't really matter is because I other than the loss perhaps of a little bit of political capital, I don't see any downside for council to go ahead and approve the rezoning. And I say that because with the introduction of Bill 20, if the province decides that this is a policy that they don't approve, they will simply override it. And if the province doesn't, then that's an endorsement from the province. So there's an incredibly complex argument, I think, fortunately, been simplified a lot by the fact that the province is now saying that they're going to act as arbiters over whatever decisions are made at any municipal level. I think the benefits of the rezoning are very, very clear. I think that the arguments for densification are very, very clear, and I don't want to belabor those points. But I would just really emphasize to council that you really can't make the wrong decision here, because if you vote in favor of the rezoning and the province doesn't want it, it doesn't matter. And if you don't vote in favor of the rezoning, then you're missing the opportunity to address some of the major issues that are facing our city going forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Let's go to Christine Brodsky-Ingham, please.
Stand here. Where do I stand?
If you just go to one of the mics, that would be great. And there's a timer there in front of you too, so you'll know when your 5 minutes. There's a timer there in front of you as well, so you'll know when your 5 minutes is coming close.
Incredibly nervous.
Don't be nervous. Yeah, you'll be fine.
Hello, Mayor Gondak, councillors, fellow Calgary residents, and visitors. My name is Christine Brodsky-Ingham, and I'm a longtime resident of Ward 13. There's 3 aspects of housing that I'm concerned about. One is the reasons for the high cost of housing, and that the RCG likely will increase the cost of housing, and the encouragement of creating basement suites which lack natural light, ventilation, have exposure to radon gas, which causes 16% of lung cancer in people who do not smoke, and creates a permanent underclass. In 1993, several REITs were created, real estate investment trusts, which enabled REITs to, because of changes in the tax code, purchase large swaths of Canadian real estate. They're into everything from shopping centers to apartments. Cap REIT, probably the largest went from 2,900 units to 63,400 units last year. They 20 to 30% of apartment units are owned by REITs. Other financialization of housing includes private equity funds, pension funds, and so on. In Nova Scotia, in Dartmouth, there was such a fuss when it was discovered that TELUS pension fund owned a large number of low-rent housing units, apartment units, that they eventually sold it. When developers create building, they usually collect about 15% in profits. REITs are constantly trying to increase their profits. Here's an example. Cap REIT. If you can see it, picture of an apartment building with a money sign, apartments make money, annual report 2000. If you look at the recent benefit or income of real estate income trusts, they are increasing what they make on the same apartment year after year by cutting costs and increasing rents. Financialization of family rental housing. Martina Gust, professor at University of Waterloo, another article by 3 professors, including UBC, and about how this is creating very expensive housing. The objectives of REITs are to basically increase their record-breaking profits. Canadian Investment Bank is lending $17 million to Cap REIT, the largest apartment REIT owner in Canada, in order to improve their ability to decrease their carbon footprint. I don't think that any costs will be passed on to the owners. Now we have in Calgary the problem of outfits such as design companies which are building these 3-story units, fourplexes with up to 12 actual living units, and they are building them for investors. One particular design company, which I don't want to name because it would single them out compared to other design companies, go and get the permits and so on, and they show pictures of the units they built, the fourplexes, the 3 units and so on, and they say that they are there to help investors get return on investment. One of the particular units that they build, a fourplex, says that they say that they've contained the costs such as building materials in order to maximize profit. That is their exact wording. This is not the way to go. It will only increase financialization of housing. There are other ways to do this. For example, land trusts, which are common in Vancouver, which you can read about on their housing website. I think there was a lady here earlier about 1145 commenting on ways in which we could prevent financialization of housing. Even condos are better, any type of, just about any type that allows home ownership. The city told me, planning department said they do not know if the fourplexes can be divided, if anyone can own them individually. The basement suites and the laneway houses cannot. So therefore, more financialization of housing owned by investors, which cannot ever be owned by actual people. I don't approve of basement suites because of radon, the other issues I've mentioned. I don't think that Calgary should be encouraging that sort of thing. We're going to create a permanent underclass of people. You need $60,000 to income to pay for the current rents at $1,500, which I've seen advertised online. Thank you very much. My time is up.
Thank you for your presentation. If you grab a seat just behind you, if there's questions, I'll let you know. If you grab a seat just behind you, I'll let you know if there's questions.
I have been watching it all online. It's been wonderful. It's a brilliant idea.
Thank you. Cheryl Ritter, please.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. I'd just like to thank the mayor and councillors for giving everyone an opportunity to express our thoughts. I am from the community of Brentwood, and I'm in a home which is currently zoned RC1. I'm against the blanket rezoning for many of the same reasons you've been hearing from other members of the community, which would be like privacy, trash bins, loss of mature leaves, trees. Lot coverage increasing to 60% is, I think, going too far. We need to allow space for trees, gardens, pets, and children. I have concerns with the height limit of 11 meters. A lot of the existing R1 neighborhoods, which are proposing to change to RCG, contain bungalows. And having, 36 feet beside a bungalow is quite excessive. It would block all the sunlight they get, that type of thing. There's already a bylaw in place that allows 28 feet or 8.6 meters. And I think that is more than sufficient beside a bungalow. Our earth is also being affected by climate change. Solar panels can help reduce our impact on the planet. And if we are putting solar panels potentially on some of these bungalows, the shadowing will just make them null and void. People won't be able to grow a garden or enjoy their yard. I do understand that we do need more housing in Calgary. However, I think increasing density to 12 times the current RC1 areas is not appropriate. It goes too far. That could potentially mean 50 people more on a lot right beside a single family home. And I just think that's too much. There's already significant challenges in parking in most neighborhoods. Densification on that scale needs to be done in areas that have been set aside for higher density, where the properties will fit in with the area. Some examples of this are the new condos at Northland Mall, the proposed redevelopment at Co-op in Dalhousie, University District, Research Park close to the university. I believe if we allow blanket rezoning in Calgary, we'll lose the continuity in existing neighborhoods. Our real estate prices will soar as Calgary will be bought up by investors across the country and international investors. Most of Calgary will be owned by people or corporations who do not call Calgary home. It will become harder and harder for and more expensive for people who live in Calgary to actually purchase this home because they will be outbid by developers who will put up to 12 homes on one lot. That's the 4 primary, the 4 in the basement, and the 4 laneway. Developers will be focused on maximizing the returns on the land they purchase, and these units will be more expensive than the homes they replace. I don't believe this will do anything for affordability. Let's ensure our 8 to 12 units or larger buildings happen in areas that have been designed for higher density. One of the solutions I maybe see is allowing, 1 basement suite and a laneway per lot across the city, which I believe is already basically in place, and then also putting some resources in place to help your regular homeowner achieve a basement suite or a backyard lane. As we know, the world is getting more expensive. Inflation is quite high. Homeowners as well as renters could use a little help. Everyone's struggling, or a lot of people are struggling. It could allow people to age in place. So if there was an organization out there who maybe helped, set some financing that was paid back with a portion of the rent, and then also helped arrange for maybe contractors or something along that lines that could also basically take over that responsibility as well as providing the landlording. I think more people would be open to creating basement suites or laneway homes. I just believe adding a couple more units to an RC1 lot is a lot more reasonable than adding up to 11 more units. Let's find a way to encourage and support homeowners in adding 2 units if they have the interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and I don't see any questions for this panel, so thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate the time that you spent with us on your presentations. So we will be breaking in about 5 minutes to take a break, and then we will be not coming back to public hearing. We have a committee meeting this afternoon. This public hearing will resume tomorrow morning at 9:30, and it will run from 9:30 in the morning till 9:30 in the evening. I'm going to tell you who's up next on the roster so they can be prepared. It'll be panel 164, Sarah Geddes, Matthew McIntyre, Doris Yaskew, Lawrence Hebert. Following that is panel 165, which will be Nicole Chan, Chris Dowdeswell, Benithi Nadia Karunyaka, Michelle Christofferson, and Robert Levis. So those will be the 2 panels that are up first when we resume tomorrow. However, if you were registered to speak and you missed your time and you're able to join us tomorrow, if you drop a quick note to the city clerks, and you can do that at publicsubmissions@calgary.ca, they'll make sure to let me know that you're here and we will schedule you into a panel. So thank you very much, everyone. Mr. Clerk, if there's nothing else, I can recess.
Correct, Mayor.
All right. We will recess until 9:30 tomorrow.